Welcome back to the UCL Fantasy Deadline stream, this time out of Matchday 16, the second leg of the Champions League semi-finals. We are in the end game with multiple injuries to talk about, the best replacements, and the lineups for Inter Milan and Barcelona, and also some team news for Paris Saint-Germain and Arsenal for tomorrow's game. But in terms of official lineups there, that won't be the case, and we'll discuss what Sky Sports Italia are reporting for Inter Milan and Barcelona, but only briefly because we get the official lineups very soon, so it's not worth talking about, oh, is this player going to start for Barcelona and Inter Milan, or is this player going to miss out entirely? And either way, all the team news from yesterday's team selection video will be kind of readdressed here with some update information from yesterday night and also from today. So let's get straight into your questions and comments. As always, we are on the cusp of reaching 33,000 subscribers. Thank you to those that have done so already, shown support to the channel through commenting, liking, sharing, subscribing, all the members and patrons, the likes of Paredes and Napstars for gifting multiple memberships. And speaking of which, I will be gifting memberships in today's stream to celebrate 33,000 subscribers, as we are going to achieve it at any single moment. But Hassan does say, I'm in a lot of trouble, going to need some help out here. So feel free to put your questions, your team situation, and I'll do the best I can. And I'm sure other people in the community will also be there to assist you. Cylindra says, hey Dylan, is it worth selling Szczesny, Koundé and Trossard to Donnarumma, Dumfries and Marino/Rice? If so, who? And have Sommer as goalkeeper and no Barcelona defenders? Or just sell Sommer to Donnarumma and make the other transfers? Yeah, I get your situation. I would probably stick with selling Szczesny to Sommer. I know you want that Barcelona defender, and if you're comparing Inigo Martinez and the other options there, even Christensen, they don't really stack up to Dumfries. In my opinion, I kind of stack up on Dumfries and Sommer, even though you might have Rafinha and Yamal. Some people might even go for Lewandowski, especially if he starts today. And I think that lineup will definitely inform my final transfer or two, especially in the case of Ferran Torres, because if he doesn't start, he will be on the chopping block for me for sure. But in your situation, I'd go for the first set of transfers and buy Donnarumma, Dumfries, and I'd go for Marino, even though both him and Rice will play in more advanced positions. So Rice as the box-to-box midfielder, and he also has that threat from set pieces. And you've got Marino playing as a striker, which we'll likely see tomorrow, and Trossard should be on the bench. Easy says, got 69 points last match day. Koundé and Odegaard out to Dumfries and Çalhanoğlu. I like those transfers overall. Çalhanoğlu's not an amazing UCL fantasy option. You'll rarely get like a double-digit haul from him, but he does have a lot of avenues to points through ball recoveries. He's on penalties, and he can score assists from time to time. He did it, obviously, in matchday 15. Welcome, Zodiac. Good to see you. Easy said, Inter Milan beat Barcelona 2-1 in extra time, and PSG beat Arsenal 2-0. Yeah, I think a lot of people would have a similar opinion about the PSG game. With Inter Milan Barcelona, though, it's a very difficult one to call, and they have faced each other, or this would be their 18th meeting in European competitions. So it's one of the most repeated kind of opponents and fixtures in this competition. Welcome, Let's Talk Vinyl, sorry. Good to see you. The same goes to Niraj and everyone else here. Thank you, Keith, for moderating the chat. Inter 2-1, Arsenal 2-0, says Dawid. I hope you're right. Even though, I mean, look, honestly, Barcelona's my dream kind of final opponent, but the most important thing for me is for my club to get there, but it's going to be tough. Harold says, best wildcard team. Well, this was addressed in yesterday's video, so I'm not releasing best wildcard and limitless team videos separately. Instead, what I do is combine them into one, because if I'm being honest, ever since the quarterfinal stages, really, we are seeing both chips basically be the same now. Now, I know the wildcard is more long-term, but with only 2 match days left in the competition, let's say you've got the wildcard and the limitless, it doesn't really matter which match they use, either one. Ultimately, use it. Feel free to use it if you want to, but I think the efficiency and the effectiveness of both chips has definitely decreased dramatically, especially in the case of the limitless, because most of us are sitting there with 9 million in the bank. But what I'm going to do here, even though I have made a video on it, is show you quickly the best team that I talked about yesterday. Now, there are a few points of contention. You might want to go for Doué instead of Lewandowski, who might not even start today. and most sources point towards him having 30 to 40 minutes off the bench. But I've gone for Szczesny and Donnarumma. Actually, sorry, I made a mistake there. Forget Szczesny. I would go for Sommer. That's what I talked about in yesterday's video. So Sommer and Donnarumma as the goalkeepers. Dumfries, Nuno Mendes, Bastoni, Hakimi, and Baccio. I'd probably go for something like this. Maybe, instead of Bastoni, I'd go for one Barca defender. And you might even feel like Arsenal will turn things around. So Saliba and David Raya are viable options. Luis Skelly, they're all decent. But I would go for this defensive line with Inigo Martinez. In the midfield, that's fairly locked in. Rafinha, Yamal, Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, and Saka, with Lautaro Martinez and Lewandowski up front simultaneously, and Marcus Thuram. Not many people will have that front line, and instead they'll have Doué instead of Robert Lewandowski like myself. So that's one differential play you can do on your wildcard or limitless. So let me know your thoughts in the live chat. As discussed yesterday, my favourite captains are Rafinha and Dembele, but you might have a different prediction. Maybe you back into Milan to go through, or Arsenal. So you can go for captaincy options from those respective teams, like Lautaro, who should start tonight, and Saka tomorrow. But you also might be feeling differential, so to speak. You might want to go for a lower owned player, even for the captaincy, and that's something I'd highly recommend on the Tuesday in any given match day, because you always have the Wednesday option to fall back on if needed. It is riskier if you go for a template pick now on Tuesday, but then kind of go really differential on the Wednesday. It can go well for you, and don't get me wrong, you can play the game the way you want to, but I think in terms of captaincy, if you want to risk it, it normally is better to do it on the Tuesday and then go a bit safe on the Wednesday if you want to. But UCL Fantasy is about finding your own kind of way of playing and enjoying the game in the process. João Marques da Silva says, is it a suicidal move to have only PSG defenders and goalkeeper? Mendes, Marquinhos, Baccio, Hakimi, and Donnarumma. Well, you're kind of going all out, you know? It's make or break. If it works out for you, you look like a genius, you get a lot of points in the process, and that could be one of the difference makers for you in terms of winning a mini league or rising up the ranks. But as much as I would recommend PSG defenders, because they all have different routes to points, I wouldn't go all in like you're saying there. So I might go for 4 of them. Donnarumma, Hakimi, Baccio, and Mendes. But I think going for Marquinhos as well, it's still viable, by the way, and don't get me wrong, I'm going for something slightly similar, but I'd probably urge you to diversify your team a little bit. So that could be Inigo Martinez for Barcelona, Saliba for Arsenal, or perhaps you just go for Inter Milan defenders like Dumfries. So my advice is to go for 3, maybe even 4 of them, but to go for 5 defensively is probably overkill, and I'd rather go for more PSG attackers if that's the case, to fill up your quota of those PSG assets. Yeah, Koundé is out. So yeah, that has been covered already in my videos, all of them. But Pavard is also going to be out. That's an update that happened since my team selection, but I did update the comment section saying that Pavard will be out. Thank you, Wei Sing. Good day. Another banger incoming. Yes, and it's still good to see, you know, so many people watching and tuning into these streams, and the game should be a lot of fun. Grigol says, Dylan, I decided to go all in on PSG, not to hurt my feelings much because I'm a gunner. Well, I get that kind of thinking because you ultimately want something out of the game. Obviously, my dream and hope and preference is for Arsenal to go through, but maybe, you know, going all in on PSG, you either jinx them or you get some points so you can soothe the pain. So I do get your kind of feeling there. Analgesic says, or maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I didn't, yeah, anyway. Koundé to Dumfries. Yep, simple move, but there are other defenders to go to. Maybe you've got Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, but you could triple up on PSG defensively with Baccio. Lewandowski to Ferran, you can't necessarily do that. Ferran Torres is a midfielder in this game, and we might even see Lewandowski start, so I'm not sure if I'd be buying Ferran Torres in right now. Yeah, Dembele's fit to play. He has been in training, and I said all along, he's going to play. You know, I'm not buying this kind of nonsense about him not being available. Lau says, hi Dylan, would you sell Saka for Kvaratskhelia? Probably not. I'm looking at buying the Georgian in, but not at the expense of Saka at the moment. Niraj says, if Martinez is out, who is the best replacement? He should be in the squad, and we'll find out very soon, but assuming that he's somehow out or not starting, I'd go to Robert Lewandowski, especially if the Polish striker does start. But you don't have that many options, mate. I mean, if you've got Doué and Thuram already, you're basically limited to Lewandowski or Taremi to replace Lautaro Martinez. So, yeah, we aren't really sport for choice in that forward position. even though it looks slightly better now with Lewandowski back in the fold. Native Faith says, is Marquinhos an underrated pick? Yes, he is. He wasn't that great in the first leg in terms of UCL Fantasy, but I felt he was the best defender in terms of his overall performance, actually. But didn't make that many ball recoveries, surprisingly, and he also got booked. But I think he is an underrated pick. Yeah, I mean, he's 4th in the UCL Fantasy point scoring for defenders. Well, to be honest, Delia, the wildcard and the limitless aren't that effective now anyway, but what it might enable you to do is go for those extra differentials or change your team structure slightly and have those kind of lower owned picks or something completely different to the rest of the pack. So I just use the wildcard now, to be honest. You only need a starting 11 for Matchday 17 for the Champions League final, so it's really easy to navigate that specific matchday. You also get 5 free transfers for Matchday 17, and you only get 3 for the upcoming deadline. So I just use the wildcard now, but I don't see many benefits to either the wildcard or the limitless at this stage of the competition. Josh says, hi Dylan, you said Trossard will be benched, right? I checked the UEFA predicted lineup and it says he could play. Is it a 50-50? So it's not locked in. Like, Trossard could start the game, and in the Premier League he has been one of the better forwards, at least in terms of output, but that's not saying much because Arsenal have been dreadful in the Premier League recently. But I feel that with Thomas Partey back from suspension, that will push Declan Rice into the midfield where Merino played last game. And I feel that Merino will play up front to give PSG different sort of problems, you know, in the second leg, maybe some more aerial battles and definitely causing problems from set pieces. So I'd be very surprised if Merino didn't play up front for the Gunners. Martinelli and Saka should play on the wings. I think we can all agree on that. So I think Trossard will be an impact sub. And whilst Merino also has that ability to come off the bench and change the game, I feel that Trossard will be that sort of player there, the 12th man who can maybe change things if things aren't working for the Gunners. And they didn't have that option in the first leg because both Merino and Trossard started that game. UEFA.com do have some good predicted lineups, and usually they get things almost spot on. But in this one, I disagree. I feel that Trossard will be on the bench. Alejandro says, my team is Tech, Raya, Saliba, Bastoni, Nuno, Hakimi, Pedri, Dembele, Ferran, Rafinha, Yamal, Lautaro, Marcus, Doué. I'm doing Koundé out for Dumfries, but if Lewandowski starts, should I bring him in for Doué? Yeah, I'd be on board with that. Now, Doué could do well against Arsenal. He scored against Aston Villa in the home tie of the quarterfinals, and he has that ability to score or assist against anybody. His ceiling is very high, actually. But yeah, I think Lewandowski will be my preference if he starts, and we'll find out very soon. Also, thank you to Eduardo for sending in a super chat. That is greatly appreciated. If you have a message or a question, then let me know in a non-super chat, and I'll get back to you. Now, whilst I try to fix the lights, because for some reason this light is dying on me nowadays, I'm going to bring up some other screens very soon and also answer more questions. But for those that haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on 33,000. Hit the notification bell, share, comment, all of that good stuff. And check out the links in the description for my X, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Dylan RCM. You can also find me by typing FPL Dylan, and hopefully my light can actually start working again. But yeah, I think the last couple of streams has exposed the fraudulence that this light is. But yeah, I'll definitely deal with that. And very soon we will be approaching the end of the season, but I'll still be working behind the scenes on graphics and changing things up, improving the content for next season for UCL Fantasy and FPL. So let's see how that all goes. Okay, well, hopefully it does work now, but no guarantees. So yeah, apologies for the viewing experience. Okay, I think that could be working now, but let's get back into the groove of things, so to speak. And let's start off with the UCL Fantasy League. There is a link in the description. The code is cCaFxb, so it's very easy to join. And there is also an auto-join link, so you click the button and you're automatically in the league. Let's also get the likes up to 100 plus to begin with, and then push on from there. And yeah, any other messages from members, super chatters and stuff will be read out, and that will be prioritized first, and then I'll go through the rest. With Predict 6, I've currently gone for Inter Milan 1, Barcelona 2, but I'm very conflicted about this prediction, and it could go either way. I've currently put Barcelona to score first. Will there be a goal in the first half? I've put yes. Will Yamal score in this match? I've put yes. Will Inter keep a clean sheet? No. Will this match go to extra time? I've actually put yes. So maybe it goes, 1-1, and it's 4-4 in aggregate, and then Barcelona score in extra time, but that's a risky prediction in my opinion. Now, for the PSG-Arsenal game, I hope this is wrong, but I have gone for PSG 2, Arsenal 0, and I might end up changing it because of hopium, copium, whatever you want to call it. I put PSG to score first, and for them to be 1-0 up at halftime. I think whoever scores the first goal here, it's going to be crucial, and with the Gunners, you can kind of tell if they're going to win a game or how they're going to perform based on the first few minutes. And in the first leg, PSG dominated the first 5 minutes, and they scored the opening goal, and Arsenal then started to take control of the game and were competitive from 25 minutes onwards, but they just lacked that ruthlessness up front, and that's been the story all season. They desperately need attackers in the summer, but I've put a goal in the second half, yes. Will Kvaratskhelia score in this match? I've put no, but I might end up just changing it anyway. Will there be a penalty shootout? I've put no, and I think if that was the case, PSG would be the favourites with Donnarumma being such a presence in those shootouts. But those are my predictions at the moment. I might end up changing them, but yeah, at the moment I've gone for PSG 2, Arsenal 0. Now, these are the predicted lineups. I'm only going to go through them once because we're going to get the official lineups in half an hour's time. So, according to Sky Sports Italia, they've put Szczesny in goal, Eric Garcia, Cubarsí, Araujo, and Íñigo Martínez. So you've got 2 out-of-position centre-backs playing as the full-backs there. De Jong and Pedri in the midfield, Yamal, Olmo, Rafinha, and Ferran Torres. And for Inter Milan, this has been confirmed now, so it looks like this is locked in. Jan Sommer in goal. Bissek will replace the injured Benjamin Pavard. Now, Bissek obviously played in the first leg, but the plan was to play the Frenchman instead. However, he suffered a problem in training, so he couldn't continue, and it was quite clear that he's not ready for this match. Acerbi and Bastoni is quite nailed on. You've also got Dumfries and DeMarco as the wing-backs, with Barella, Kalinoglu, and Mkhitaryan in the midfield. Lautaro Martinez and Thuram are up front. And in terms of predicted lineups on UEFA.com, they've also gone for something identical. So for Inter Milan, it's virtually the same, except they've gone for Taremi instead of Lautaro Martinez, which I disagree with. With Barcelona, they've also gone for pretty much the exact same thing here. So they are in agreement with Sky Sports Italia on that one. Now, the players who are out for Inter Milan, none, but that should be corrected to Benjamin Pavard. He is not going to be in the squad. Lautaro Martinez is doubtful, and like I said, Pavard is definitely ruled out. For Barcelona, Balde, Bernal, Casado, Koundé, and Torre are all out, and Lewandowski is doubtful, but all the reports indicate he should play half an hour, maybe even 40 minutes off the bench, and it all depends on the game state. Now, for tomorrow's game, because we won't get any lineups for PSG or Arsenal before the deadline, they have gone for Donnarumma in goal, Hakimi, Marquinhos, Pacho, Nuno Mendes, João Neves, Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz, Doué, Dembele, and Kvaratskhelia. So Kimpembe is out, Kang In Lee is doubtful, but Ousmane Dembele was in training in the last couple of days, and he will definitely start against Arsenal. Whilst the Gunners will go for Raya, White potentially. I disagree with this one, I have to say. I think Timber will come back in, and that's the big of positive news that I'll show you very soon. Both Calafiori and Timber were in training today. Saliba, Kiwior, and Lewis Skelly completes the defensive line, and I think that is pretty much nailed on. Odegaard, Partey, Rice, Saka, they've gone for Trossard, but I think it's going to be Marino in that position, and Martinelli completing that lineup. Gabriel Jesus, Havertz, and Tomiyasu are out, whilst Calafiori, Jorginho, and Timber are doubtful, but as I mentioned, the 2 fullbacks there are actually in contention to start there, and I think Timber will play over Ben White. So once that lineup is out, or the lineups for Inter Milan and Barcelona, that will be covered on this channel. And for those that haven't seen, let me show you very briefly the team selection graphics from yesterday. And I won't delve too much into it with commentary because that was addressed in yesterday's video. But this is how I did for Matchday 15, which was a fairly decent week for me, despite a few frustrations here or there. And I didn't have Denzel Dumfries, who was the star of the show. I also only had 2 PSG defenders instead of the 3 or 4 that some people had with Donnarumma or William Bacho. And in terms of the captaincy, it was fine, kind of template standard stuff with Rafinha, nothing to really write home about. Koundé, of course, and Lautaro were quite disappointing, being subbed off at halftime due to an injury. And Thuram scored, that was a relative differential with 8% ownership. Ferran Torres also did fairly well, another differential in my setup. That was what basically guaranteed me a green arrow because the others are very template like Yamal, Rafinha, and Ousmane Dembele. On the bench, all of those players blank. That's kind of what you'd expect when you make substitutions. For Matchday 17, you only pick a starting 11. You can't change the captaincy, so it's all about what you have there. So I've got a small green arrow of around 3,000 places to 27k. It would be my second worst ever rank, basically. It's not a good season, but still a solid rank overall. But I'm hoping to improve that for next season, that's for sure, and end this campaign as strongly as possible. So I've got 9.5 million in the bank as things stand, and I've got 3 transfers at my disposal. And what you see next are all of my potential transfers for Matchday 16, but there could be a slight change or two based on the lineups. So Raya to Donnarumma is what I'd likely do. Well, I mean, that's the only goalkeeper transfer I would have to make on the Tuesday. I don't see myself, sorry, that'll be on the Wednesday. I don't see myself doing Szczesny to Sommer. I think covering Inter Milan defensively with Bastoni and Dumfries is more than enough. And I think if there were to be any gains in the goalkeeper transfers, it would be Raya to Donnarumma on the Wednesday. But that is something that is definitely debatable. And with these sort of moves, yeah, you definitely don't have a high ceiling. You won't gain as many points as you would in other positions more often than not. But looking at the other areas I'm looking to tweak, it's mainly in that defensive line. So Jules Koundé will definitely be sold because he's out, he won't play, he's not going to be in the squad, and Denzel Dumfries is the most likely replacement. But another option I'm looking at in this position is to triple up on PSG defensively and go for William Baccio, and that could be a quadruple PSG defense if I also buy Donnarumma simultaneously. And it would be William Saliba making way. I would keep Bastoni, I'd buy Dumfries, and also have Nuno Mendes and Hakimi. So that essentially builds the best team that I talked about in yesterday's podcast. But let's say, for example, Ousmane Dembele is injured, which doesn't look to be the case, but my kind of go-to replacement would be Kvaratskhelia in this case, and I can still buy him and replace Ferran Torres instead, especially if the Spaniard is benched for Robert Lewandowski, which is definitely a possibility here, and we'll find out in the next 20 to 30 minutes. And if that's the case, I could actually do something like this, sell Lautaro Martinez or Doué to Robert Lewandowski, but I'd only do this if Lautaro was benched and Lewandowski started. If they both start, then maybe I'll just pull the trigger and sell Doué instead. But I think there is an element of risk with any of those transfers anyway. Some players can score off the bench, and in the case of Doué, I think selling him could actually be a big risk this week, and he's got a decent chance of scoring, as I showed you in the odds for the goal scoring yesterday. But with all of that in mind, this is my current Matchday 16 provisional team selection, and these are the most likely transfers I will make because I feel like Lautaro Martinez will start, and the same goes for Ousmane Dembele. So Szczesny in goal, away to Inter Milan. I'm not going to buy Jan Sommer at this point. I've got Dumfries, Bastoni, and Nuno Mendes. Should I buy the Dutchman in? And I feel like I will do it very soon. In the midfield, it's very template, but I also feel like they are very solid picks. I think Ferran Torres is the only one who isn't really a template pick. He's got low ownership overall. So Rafinha, Yamal, Torres, and Dembele looks fairly solid overall. And up front, I've got a template front three at this point in time. So I've got Thuram, Martinez, and Doué. And up front, on the bench, I've got Donnarumma, Hakimi, Baccio, and Saka. So it's a very solid 50-man squad. And as you can see, I'm kind of favouring PSG and potentially Barcelona, although my coverage in those two teams is more balanced than it would be of Arsenal. And that also assumes that I sell Saliba and Raya at the same time. And that isn't completely locked in my opinion. With the captaincy, Rafinha on the Tuesday and Dembele on the Wednesday is what I'd likely go for, but that isn't set in stone. But yeah, it is template. Maybe I should go a little bit different. And ultimately, at this stage of the competition, the way you kind of gain rank is by going all in on a certain defense or attack and going, for your prediction. If you think PSG go through, then you go for 5 or 6 PSG players and minimize your Arsenal coverage in the process. You can still get green arrows and having a balance in terms of your coverage, all of these teams. But yeah, I feel the best way to get a significant rank rise is to have your coverage kind of be very biased or very, just pushing towards the same team, so to speak. And with the captaincy, another way to do it is to go differential with the captain. And on the Tuesday, you do have a sort of opportunity here to go against Rafinha for one of the very, very rare few times this season, I have to say, because I do feel like Rafinha, away to Inter Milan, this could be one of the times that he does blank, to be quite honest with you. But that is my team selection graphics. You can check out the video from yesterday for detailed analysis and commentary. But before I go back to your questions, let me show you the odds and also the team news that has been coming out recently. So PSG are top with a 29% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Barcelona, Arsenal, and Inter Milan are the rest of the semi-finalists ranked in order of clean sheet odds. And Inter Milan are significantly bottom, actually. 17% chance despite being at home, but Barcelona's attack is heavily favoured by the algorithm. Now, with the goal scorer odds, we have some familiar names in the top 5 with Lautaro Martinez, Dembele, Rafinha, Gonzalo Ramos, and Yamal. And this is assuming that all of these players will start. That won't necessarily be the case, so bear that in mind. Yamal, Torres, Thuram, Barcola, Saka, Kvaratskhelia, Taremi, Martinelli, Olmo, Doué, Trossard, and Wanyeri complete the rest of the top 16 list, and Lautaro Martinez should be available, and he will likely start, and we'll find that out very soon. But those are the goal scorer odds. Feel free to pause, rewind, and also check out the team selection video for more analysis on those stats and graphics. But last but not least is going to be the kind of fixtures breakdown and also talking about the team news. So we all know what's at stake here. Inter Milan-Barcelona ended 3-3 in the first leg. That was a riveting game of football, and PSG carry a 1-0 lead to Paris, and Arsenal know what they need to do. They have to score at least one goal to take it to extra time and penalties, or just outscore PSG and get those 2 goals there, but that will be a very difficult task in my opinion. And of course, in terms of the bracket, that's how the knockout stages looks. We have come a long way in this competition. Every single round has been covered here with the knockout playoffs, the 2 additional rounds in the league phase, and this new format in the Champions League. But best teams, limitless wildcards, my team selections, deadline streams, chip strategies, all of that has been here on the channel to give you the best coverage for the Champions League. And let's talk about some stats before delving into the team news. Guirassy remains the top scorer of this competition with 13 goals. Rafinha has 12. Kane and Lewandowski have 11. Then you have Vinicius, Lautaro, and Haaland on 8. So there are 3 players to look out for in this race for the Golden Boot. Rafinha, Lewandowski, and Lautaro Martinez, and the Brazilian is currently the favourite to win that award. So, this is what came out yesterday night. The feeling is that Lautaro Martinez will be available to face Barcelona on Tuesday. The forward is doing everything possible to recover in time. Double sessions, physical work, recovery work. He has a great will to be there. That's something I discussed actually in yesterday's team selection video. And there were reports that Pavard would start, but unfortunately he will not be called up, and there is no chance, nothing can be done about it because he suffered a slight problem in training. He couldn't continue, so it's quite clear that he's not available. And also for another defender, but this time from Barcelona, Balde will not play against Inter Milan, but he could make a return in El Clasico this weekend. And initially, it seemed like Lewandowski would make it for the Real Madrid game, but miss the Inter Milan match, and Balde would actually be available for Matchday 16. But now the roles have reversed, so here Balde is definitively out, and we can't rely on him in UCL Fantasy. So Lewandowski is ready for Inter Milan. The Polish striker is fit enough to at least make Barcelona's bench on Tuesday. But more reports are coming in. And look, one of them says that he won't start, and we'll find out very soon if that's the case. So the Polish striker will be on the bench. Hansi Flick is thinking about bringing him on at some point in the second half. But another report came in saying that Lewandowski has told Hansi Flick that he wants to start against Inter Milan. He feels confident that he's ready to start the game. So that'll be very interesting. One of the big topics about Matchday 16, is it Ferran Torres or Lewandowski up front? And whoever starts there, that will inform our transfer plans. So I would urge everyone watching to not lock in any transfers just yet. And once we get those lineups, you can start making your moves and locking everything in from the captaincy, substitutions, ensure all your Tuesday players are in your starting 11. And to complete the coverage of the team news here, let's move on to the Wednesday games. So Ousmane Dembele was in PSG training yesterday despite a hamstring issue. So he is going to be available, and all the reports indicate that he will start. And for Arsenal, Timber is expected to be fit to play against PSG. So that's something I covered in yesterday's team selection. And Odegaard said he's okay. It was just a hit, so it's a bit sore, but it's fine. And that was talking about a slight problem he had against Bournemouth in that 2-1 defeat. And Odegaard should be available. So Calafiori, Timber, and Odegaard were all in training today. So that's some good news there for the Gunners, who have had an injury-ridden season, so to speak. And the likes of PSG, for example, have a clean bill of health with the exception of Kimpembe, and Kang In Lee is doubtful, but the rest are available, and that includes their star player, Ousmane Dembele. So that's all the team news you really need. And for Barcelona Inter Milan, as I mentioned before, we'll get the lineup very soon. So once that is out, we can talk about it and offer our opinions. Let's now go back to my team selection and my current squad without making any single transfer. So I'll leave that there for a while whilst we wait for the lineups. Okay, someone says the lineups are out. We'll go to that very soon. Yes, Shreyas, that is. And that's literally the rank I'm looking to... Well, the rank. That's the amount of subscribers we are probably reaching any second now. So let me have a look. So yeah, we are 8 subscribers away from 33,000. Let's be sure to reach that goal by the end of the deadline stream. Thank you to those that have subscribed and liked the video. It is greatly appreciated. Let's get this video to 100 plus likes to begin with and then push on to 200 plus. Andrés Miranda says, Hola Dylan, espero que estés bien. ¿Te parece bien sacar a Saka por Ferran Torres? No es una mala idea, pero es posible que Ferran Torres va a estar en el banco y será Robert Lewandowski como el delantero principal. Y yo creo que Saka es una de las mejores opciones de mañana y seguramente del Arsenal. Así que, por más que yo creo que PSG tiene grandes posibilidades de ganar el partido y progresar a la final, yo creo que Saka es mejor que Ferran Torres in UCL Fantasy. Thank you, Naraj. Rikes, hopefully I haven't butchered your name. Hi, Dylan, great content. I have the wildcard. Will you use it now? I have 5 Arsenal, 3 PSG, 2 Inter forwards, and 5 Barca. Would you use the wildcard or juggle with free transfers? You might as well use it now, mate. Like I mentioned before, it's very easy to navigate Matchday 17 in terms of building a full starting 11. You don't need substitutions there because you can't make them for the Champions League final and you can't change the captaincy. So use the wildcard now, especially if you're less bullish on Arsenal. I know they can come back. It's only a 1-0 deficit, but the stats, the odds, and I think most people would point towards PSG going through. And you might feel the same way. And if that's the case, you definitely use the wildcard now and go for a different sort of structure and maybe go for some differentials there. So yes, Samir, the updates on Lewandowski and Martinez were just covered. Let me know if you got that. If Arsenal go through, I don't care about fantasy points. Same here, Grigol. Same here. In an ideal world, green arrows, great end to the season in UCL Fantasy and Arsenal win the Champions League. But yeah, we're asking for a lot there. Partey is a world-class player. I hope Arsenal will continue to keep him in the upcoming season, says Weiseng. I think Partey has world-class ability, but during his time at Arsenal, he has missed a lot of games through injury, except for this season where he's arguably been Arsenal's best outfield player in this campaign, certainly the most consistent, but there are some mistakes in there at times, and he can be very frustrating, but I think he makes Arsenal tick, and he was a massive loss in the first leg, so I do agree that he's a very important player for the Gunners. Yeah, Odegaard, he's had a bad season, we all know this. In the first half against Bournemouth, he showed signs of something a little bit different. In the first half, he was direct, and the assist for Declan Rice was fairly decent, but he tailed off in the second, and I think he's very inconsistent, and even the basics he's getting wrong at times. In UCL Fantasy, I prefer Kvaratskhelia, Dembele, Saka, Rafinha, Yamal, potentially 1 or 2 more like Çalhanoğlu, but Odegaard could be a massive differential, and I don't discourage people from going different. If you feel Arsenal will turn things around, and you might have a good feeling about Odegaard, go for it. I just feel that on paper, and based on the seasons they're having, I think there are better options in UCL Fantasy. Aris says, Dylan, my current rank is 5,357. This is my 3rd year following your videos. Thank you for what you do. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you very much for the kind words, and hopefully you can push on and finish in an even better rank, but that certainly is a great position to be in, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the season. Right, yeah, I was kind of feeling that I was kind of bugging out. Yeah, so Szczesny, Catalan nickname for him. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, Szczesny's all right. He's not my favourite option, but I don't see a massive difference between him and Sommer in today's game, to be honest. I think Donnarumma Raya could be the biggest swing, as we saw last week. I have Trossard, Saka, sell one for Kvaratskhelia, who? I'd rather sell Trossard. I don't think he's going to start, as covered before. All right, Eduardo, I'll have a look at the message you put. Yeah, from what I've seen, it doesn't appear for me. So literally the super chat you sent had no actual message in it on my end. But, oh, right, I think it's just before. Okay, I think I've got it now. Who should I transfer from my team? I have Raya, Szczesny, Hakimi, Bacho, Mendes, Saliba, and Dumfries. Vitinha, Rafinha, Dembele, Hakan, Torres, Thuram, Lautaro, and Doué. Interesting. So you've got a solid team. Defensively, you might want to sell Saliba, but that's kind of like debatable. I'd probably look at selling one of Raya or Saliba, maybe even both. If I had to pick one of those transfers, it would be Raya to Donnarumma. because Saliba can still get ball recoveries, and in terms of goalkeepers, Donnarumma has the best chance of a clean sheet. So I think that's probably the best case for your defensive line. In the midfield, maybe you sell Torres, especially if he's not starting today. And the lineup is out, I think, so I'll talk about that very soon. But I think it's probably worth going to the lineup, and then I can answer your question at the same time. So let's go to UEFA.com and the official lineups. And no, they're not there. They're not there. That's great. But they should be any second. And once we find that out, I can give you a good idea about whether you keep Ferran Torres or sell him. But yeah, Inter Milan's lineup is official, and it's basically what we talked about before. Sommer, Bisek, Acerbi, Bastoni, Dumfries, Barella, Kalinoglu, Mkhitaryan, DeMarco, Thuram, and Lautaro Martinez. So no surprises there for Inter Milan. And Barcelona, that's the one I'm more interested in, to be honest. Because Ferran Torres Lewandowski is still up in the air, in my opinion. But once we find that out, I can give a definitive answer to your super chat. But let's see. Based on what we know right now, yeah, I think Raya and maybe Saliba as well. I'd sell. And I go to Donnarumma and potentially Inigo Martinez, especially if you want more Barcelona coverage defensively. I mean, you've got Szczesny in goal, to be fair, so you don't need a double up. One differential play for you, and someone mentioned it earlier, Eduardo, is about going for 5 PSG defenders, but in your case, that's probably not possible because you've got Vitinho and Dembele and also Doué. So, yeah, I think what you have actually makes it more difficult because to get that 7th or 8th PSG player is not possible until the Champions League final. So, yeah, that would require selling Doué or maybe another option. So, I get your kind of dilemma this week, actually. Yeah, it's not entirely easy. At the moment, what I'd recommend, Eduardo, is selling Doué to Lewandowski and Raya to Donnarumma. Let me know what you think about that. But if Lewandowski is benched, I understand if you are discouraged from it. Not selling Timber, thoughts? He should play. He should play. Is he one of my favourite options this week? Not necessarily. But he's not a bad option. Yeah, Goldhead, I covered that earlier. I literally showed it on screen as well. Thuram or Doué, says Gio Boys. Thuram. Quite close though. Alex says, hey Dylan, I've come back to this after a couple of months, so I only have 9 players to play this week, including Martinez with no transfers. Is it worth making more moves? Yeah, that's a difficult situation to be in, Alex. It might be worth a -4 hit potentially for a differential, but it depends on which players you're kind of missing from your squad, and I don't know which players you have or don't have, but there aren't many players I take a hit for at this stage of the competition, if I'm being honest. Best bust defender, probably Inigo Martinez. Well, easy. To be honest, I wasn't that confident against Real Madrid, and Arsenal exceeded my expectations tenfold. Football is an unpredictable game. I also think PSG don't have that pedigree in Europe, so I think the pressure can be put on them. It all depends on how Arsenal start the game, and if they get the first goal, I think it's anyone's game at that point. But whoever scores that opening goal, I think, has a great chance of going through. So if PSG score within the first few minutes or make it 2-0 on aggregate, then I think the chances get very slim for Arsenal. But they have a chance. I don't think PSG are an unbeatable team. They're very good. You might even argue they're the most rounded team left in the competition, but I don't think they're invincible, and I do think they can be fragile mentally. Best Koundé replacements, he is injured, Liad. He's out for the next 3 weeks, as covered before. I think Dumfries is the best replacement for him, but it also depends on the players you have already, and I don't know which players are in your setup, but I wouldn't even mind tripling up on PSG defensively with Nuno Mendes, Hakimi, and Pacho. Thank you, Stasi. Very much appreciated. Congratulations on 33k. I wish you many more. Very kind words, and I think we might have got it yet, but yeah, we're still a little way away. So we'll leave that for now, but yeah, at any point during the stream or in the next week or so, we should be reaching 33,000 subscribers. Anish says, is captaining Dumfries or Martinez a risk? There's always an element of risk, but look what Dumfries did in the last round. I mean, he got 2 goals and an assist. No one expected it. And it's a Tuesday game, so if it doesn't go well, you've always got the Wednesday option to fall back on, and Dembele would be a standout there. So I honestly don't mind captaining someone a little bit different or left field. So I'd definitely encourage that sort of different thinking with the captaincy, and I wouldn't discourage people from going against it, because At this stage of the competition, you're not going to gain rank by doing what everyone else does, and I'll probably captain Rafinha, but I think it's worth taking a punt on someone like Dumfries. Do I think he's going to repeat what he did last week? No, but he can still score or get an assist. The best defenders for ball recoveries include Bacho. I think Marquinhos is also a great choice. With Koundé out of the equation, I'd be looking at Saliba for that particular metric. But even Nuno Mendes, he got the most ball recoveries of any defender in Matchday 15, so he's definitely got that capability, more so than Hakimi in my opinion. So yeah, those are the best defenders, the four I mentioned. You might even put Bastoni in that list as well. So that's a top 5 list of ball recovery defenders for you, but I'd still encourage you to go for Hakimi in your team. Should I keep Saliba or Lewis Skelly? Saliba is better for ball recoveries, but his ownership is significantly higher. So Lewis Skelly is a differential, and he was very unlucky not to get an assist in the first leg. He created a chance, I think, for Martinelli, which he should have scored. So it's a tough one, but I'd probably keep Saliba. Kvaratskhelia or Ferran Torres? Kvaratskhelia this week. Mobo Bat says, would you go for Taremi or Arnautovic? Well, Taremi is a slightly better option, I feel. Now, heading into the first leg, there were reports indicating that Arnautovic would start if Thuram wasn't available, but it ended up being Taremi coming on for Lautaro when he got injured, and Thuram obviously started the game. But I'd lean towards Taremi, who had a decent performance in Matchday 15. Roy Martin says, hi Dylan, forgot the deadline last time. Actually gained rank though, but that means I'm still with players like Rudiger. Just change him to Dumfries, or would you prioritise Saka or Calhanoglu to Yamal? That is a great question, because I think Yamal has one of the highest ceilings of any player, and his performance in the first leg was spectacular, and that's why he currently leads the Ballon d'Or race, actually. I'd still go for Dumfries in for Rudiger, but I wouldn't mind, in your scenario, taking a hit and buying both of them at the same time. I know they play each other, but the ceiling of both players is really high, so I think it's worth it. So you can see the lineups on screen. Let me go through them. Inter Milan I did read out earlier, but just to go through it one more time. Sommer, Dumfries, Thuram, Lautaro Martinez, Acerbi, Calhanoglu, Mkhitaryan, Barella, Bisek, DeMarco, and Bastoni. For Barcelona, Szczesny, Kubarsi, Inigo Martinez, Ferran Torres, Pedri, Rafinha, Yamal, Olmo, De Jong, Eric Garcia, and Gerard Martin. So I do think Sky Sports Italia did get one of them wrong. If I go back now to the... Yeah, I think they did. Because Gerard Martin is playing at left back. But yeah, that is the lineups. Of course, these are the predictions for tomorrow. PSG and Arsenal, which I covered before. All the doubtful players, those that are out. No suspensions, of course, for any of the semi-finalists. Thomas Partey is now back, of course, from that one-game suspension. But yeah, those are the lineups. I'll go back to it at one stage later in the stream, showing the formations as well, using UEFA.com. But let's now go back to my team and discuss my thoughts following that lineup. So Jules Koundé is definitely out. That's always been the case. I'll likely go to Dumfries. And based on what I've just seen, I might end up keeping Ferran Torres and instead focusing my efforts on going all in on PSG by getting, I think, Bacho for Saliba, Donnarumma for Raya, and that would be a quadruple up in the PSG defence. And hopefully I jinx them, but if not, I'll get some points in the process. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, Ferran starts and Lewandowski ain't starting. Yeah, I still feel like Lewandowski can get significant game time off the bench. And if Inter Milan are leading at half-time, I could see Lewandowski being subbed on, yeah, straight away, basically, in the second half. Dumfries, Nuno Mendes or Kubarsi? In isolation, I think Nuno Mendes is the best option, then Dumfries, and then Kubarsi. To be honest, Mark, I think the Limitless isn't that powerful or effective now or in the final. I'd probably just use it now, to be honest, but yeah, that's mainly because the final is quite easy to navigate. You only need a starting 11, as discussed before. If Lewandowski is confirmed to start, well, yeah, he's not starting. Ferran Torres is, but that doesn't mean he's going to get 60-plus minutes guaranteed. Now, could Barcelona go very aggressive and have Ferran Torres and Lewandowski up front at the same time? It's possible, but I feel like it could be a like-for-like switch if the Polish striker comes on. So I think with what you have... Yeah, and by the way, people keep saying this about Lewandowski to Ferran or vice versa. They play in different positions in UCL Fantasy. Ferran Torres is classified as a midfielder, so you can't actually sell Lewandowski to Ferran Torres directly only if you sell him to another striker and then buy Ferran Torres in the midfield. But yeah, because he's not starting, I would rather keep Ferran Torres and Lautaro Martinez. Yep, Nick, that was just covered now. Is it worth captaining Martinez or Dumfries? That was covered as well, Sidindra. The answer is yes. What about Dembele? He's playing. He's been in training, and there is no surprises there. Do you know something about Lewandowski, if he'll play or not? We just covered the lineups, and I don't have any inside information. All I know is the sources from different Spanish media and Catalans, and they all indicate that he will get game time off the bench, and Lewandowski was pushing to start this game. Thoughts on Kubarsi? Not a big fan. I thought he'd be a good UCL Fantasy asset at the beginning of the season, but that hasn't been the case. Aside from Koundé to Dumfries, do I transfer in Donnarumma for Raya and Inigo, Kubarsi or Pacho for Saliba? I prefer Pacho out of those three defenders to replace Saliba, and I think Donnarumma for Raya is a good option. Now, could Arsenal pile the pressure on and get a comeback? They definitely can. I don't think PSG are invincible, but I think the logical play is to back PSG and go all in on their squad. But it is a big risk, and could Arsenal score in Paris? It's definitely possible, and if that happens, then you might end up regretting it. But I think at this stage, it's all about going for the high risk, high reward strategies, because otherwise you're not going to gain significant ranks there. Henry Lopez says, I'm guessing that's the first leg. So, me puso 20 puntos detrás de primer lugar. Harías 3 reemplazo y aceptar la penalidad de puntos. Saludos desde México. Gracias por tus videos esta temporada. Éxito a 33,000. Gracias, Henry López. Es una buena pregunta. Depende de qué jugadores vas a comprar para tomar un -4 o -8, pero no hay muchos jugadores en este momento que yo creo que vale la pena de tomar un -4, en mi opinión, pero también me gusta ser agresivo en esta parte de la temporada porque ya estamos terminando y no hay muchas oportunidades de ganar rank o también de subir en estas ligas, así que es una buena pregunta, pero creo que con -4 y -8, si es posible, prefiero evitarlo. James Evans says, glad I don't have to make a ST transfer as there are none left. Oh, striker transfer. Yeah, I get that. I mean, in general, I urge people to kind of keep their transfers until the lineups are out, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really much that has changed now following what we've seen. Should I trade Ferran Torres or Lautaro for Lewandowski? Yeah, that's been covered ice cold. I mean, once again, Ferran Torres is a midfielder, Lewandowski is a striker, so you can't sell one to the other directly, and because Ferran is starting, I don't think it really makes sense to do it. Can he score off the bench? Absolutely, but I'm not so sure. I'm not leaving Lewandowski on the bench. High risk, high reward, maybe. Yeah, and that's why he was in my best team video, and I did say there that he will likely be a substitute, but it is maybe worth a inclusion on the wildcard or limitless. But in terms of taking a hit for it, or selling Ferran Torres, I'm not sure about that strategy. Yeah, I think it's worth keeping Lewandowski, but once more, it kind of depends on your situation. If you have Ferran Torres or you need to take a hit to get Lewandowski, I'm kind of against that. Who do you have going to the final? Realistically, I'd say PSG and then probably Barcelona. I hope it's Arsenal, and then whoever it is in the other one, I couldn't really care, but my dream final will be Barcelona and getting revenge for 2006, but yeah, we'll see. I keep the front three, says Easy. I think a lot of us will. Whether people have Lewandowski or they don't, I think they'll probably keep what they have in many scenarios. Omar says keep Saliba, he might score. He rarely scores goals though. I mean, apart from one stage this season where he scored in back-to-back Premier League games, he doesn't have that same goal threat as Gabriel, but PSG are very shaky from set pieces, and I think that could be a great opportunity for Arsenal to cause some problems. So maybe Saliba does get a goal, and he's got the ball recovery potential. I can't guarantee that I'm selling him or keeping him, but right now, it's more likely that I'll sell him. Yeah, PK, but obviously the lineups are out, and I did cover them. So, yeah, Ferran Torres starts, and Lewandowski's on the bench. No other real kind of significant bits of news to report there. Everything is as we'd expect. Alpa says, hey Dylan, my mids are Rafinha, Yamal, Dembele, Saka. Which fifth midfielder do you recommend? For this match day, I'd lean towards Kvaratskhelia. Shayan says, hello, how are you, Dylan? Will Dembele play? Yeah, he's going to play. He's been training. Sell Saka for Kvaratskhelia? Not for me, Ratchet, but it's up to you. Thoughts on Kubarsi, says Stasi. Yeah, I covered this question earlier. I don't think it's a great UCL fantasy option. If you want to cover Barca defensively, then I think Inigo Martinez is the best of a bad bunch. I think Koundé is normally the best, but obviously he's out. So, look, Kubarsi could surprise people, but he doesn't get that many ball recoveries. He's not going to offer the same goal threat as Inigo Martinez, so I'd rather go for a different player. Thank you, Ice Cold Murderer. And yeah, thank you, DG. So let's cover some different questions and comments. So Amara says, thoughts on Lewandowski to Thuram and Koundé to Dumfries. I'm on board with it. I think those are good transfers. Thuram obviously made an immediate impact in the first leg, but could Lewandowski score off the bench? He can, so it is a risk still. But from a minutes perspective, it does make sense to go for Thuram. I'm not sure about the rest of your team, so maybe if you had somebody else that I feel needs to be transferred out, maybe Saliba or Raya, I'd urge you to do that instead of selling Lewandowski. But it's a close one. I think it's going to go down to fine margins, and it could be a 50-50 call that results in a significant swing that goes against you. Inter-home game in Europe, unbeaten for 2 seasons. Yep, that was also talked about in my team selection video yesterday. I think it's like 14 games as well, 11 wins, 3 draws, 0 losses. Inigo Martinez, Saliba or DeMarco to replace Koundé. Saliba's the best for ball recoveries. DeMarco has the most attacking threat. And I think Inigo Martinez is the best Barca defender right now in UCL Fantasy. My favourite for Matchday 16 is probably DeMarco. I have Hakimi, Nuno Mendes, Dumfries and Bastoni. Oof. That might change things because you've already got 2 defenders for Inter Milan. And if you have Sommer in goal, that's free Inter Milan defensive coverage. Having 4 is probably overkill, especially against the best attack in the competition. For what it's worth, I don't think Inter Milan keep a clean sheet. So if you buy DeMarco, it's for that attacking potential. Would you transfer out Sommer for Szczesny just to cover Barca's defense? I'll be honest, I don't see a massive difference between both of them, and we saw that in play for the first leg. So I'm not sure if I would, to be honest, Liad. From those 3 players, Jesus, my favourite is Kvaratskhelia. Now, Marino should play up front for Arsenal, and Trossard will likely be on the bench. And that's my prediction for it. UEFA.com have Trossard in the lineup. I disagree with them. So it all depends on your predictions there. Yeah, Calafiori is fit. He should be in the squad, but I don't think he starts. So the answer to your question is no. Lewis Skelly should be at left back, and Calafiori will be on the bench. Goldhead says, other than Raya, Koundé to Donnarumma, Dumfries, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I get that. I'm also in a similar situation. Probably keeping Lewandowski, Lautaro, either Saliba to PSG defender or Saka to Kvaratskhelia. If I were to recommend one of those transfers, it would be Saliba to PSG defender. I'd keep Saka still. Juan says, hi Dylan, sell Trossard for Marino or Kvaratskhelia. I would go to Kvaratskhelia personally, but Marino is a good option. I don't see a big difference between those two actually. And if Arsenal were to make a comeback, I think Saka and Marino are the most likely to score. FPL K-Mag says, sell Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia for the minutes and the fact that PSG are more likely to go through and Torres will be a problem for the final. Yes, good logic there, FPL K-Mag, but at the same time, it's very easy to build a starting 11 for the final because you only need a starting 11. Substitutions are irrelevant. You can't make them for Matchday 17. But yeah, I think Kvaratskhelia is slightly better than Ferran Torres this week, but not by much. Is 9 Tuesday, 6 Wednesday a good ratio? Theoretically, yes, but I always say this, it's about the quality of players, not just the structure. It's good to be conscious about it, but you might even have 7 Tuesday or less, but at the same time, it can still pay dividends and you get a great rank rise. But yeah, I think it's a good ratio. I always encourage people, if possible, to have 8 or 9 Tuesday players, but it's not always going to be the case. Josh puts his team, is there any transfers you would recommend? Yeah, I think you have the best goalkeepers, so that's fine. I'd maybe sell Bissek. I know you've got a solid team overall, but I would recommend selling Bissek and Trossard. And of course, the German centre-back is starting, but I would recommend selling him. And I would go to Bacho, personally. But it is up to you who you want to replace him with. And I think Trossard... Yeah, Trossard to Dembele has to be. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Trossard, Marino or Kvaratskhelia? You have asked this before, Jesus, so refer back to that previous answer. Mora Do CR82 says, Ferran Torres out, Kvaratskhelia in, for free, worth it. Yeah, and that has been asked quite a lot recently, so I'm not really going to change my mind about that. I think it's a small improvement, so it's fine. Yes, Tube, I do speak Spanish. Jeff says, thank you, Dylan. Great work. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Do you think bringing in Lewandowski for free is worth it? It depends who you're selling, but he's not starting the game. So if you're confident about him coming off the bench and doing well, then it's not a bad option. But I think for those with Ferran Torres in the midfield, would I sell him and buy Lewandowski up front? No. Would I take a hit for Lewandowski? No. For free, I think it's a good idea, but the minutes are going to be very insecure. Yeah, Ventislav, I've not trying to be rude, but I've covered this a lot. Dembele will play tomorrow. He was in training. There's not much more to say about it. Do you rather have Ferran Torres over Kvaratskhelia? Probably not. Probably not. Raul says, why go all in on PSG defense when Arsenal will attack from the get-go since they're a goal down? Well, like I said, it's all about making those changes to your structure to get those rank rises, and it's a high risk, high reward scenario. Could Arsenal score in Paris? Absolutely, but they haven't scored in the last 6 semi-finals across all competitions. Even this season, they lost 2-0 to Newcastle in both legs. They lost 1-0 at home to PSG, and they can be toothless up front. So we're not talking about a great Arsenal side or a fantastic attack. I think last season in the Premier League, more often than not, they did score a lot of goals, but they also had games where they failed to score and they looked quite clueless against the mid to low block. And PSG, in the first leg, they did concede some chances, but Arsenal don't have that quality up front to really punish teams when they concede those opportunities. So, look, you could be right and Arsenal end up scoring and the PSG defence flops. You could be absolutely correct there, but at the same time, Arsenal aren't the most reliable of teams offensively. I'd probably say they're the worst from the 4 semi-finalists. Manu says, my only issue is I believe he is getting sub for Lewandowski in the second half. Yeah, I get that, and that's why Kvaratskhelia is more nailed on in terms of minutes, and I think if Inter Milan are 1-0 up, or maybe it's 0-0 and Barcelona are trying to pile on the pressure, Ferran Torres is having a poor game, he could be sobbed off for half-time, I get you, but I think he'll get 60-70 minutes, Ferran Torres, and that could be enough for a return, but in an ideal world, I would sell him, so I do agree with you. No. Dembele is playing, so I would not be selling him. Should I sell an Inter defender to a Barca defender? Yeah, probably Kvaratskhelia. Maybe you go to a PSG defender instead. I'm not sure what other defenders you have. Ferran Torres for Trossard. That's an upgrade. I don't think Trossard starts, but I think I'd go for someone else, to be honest with you. Sell Lewandowski and get Doué. From a minutes perspective, that's absolutely sound. But having said that, I think Lewandowski can score off the bench. So it's a high risk, high reward scenario, you could say. Maybe not high risk, but I don't think it's guaranteed to work out. Yeah, transfer plans I covered before, Jude, and it's also dissected a lot in my team selection video. I've got 5 possible transfers most likely. Koundé's definitely going to go. I'm looking at selling Raya and Saliba, but I might end up keeping one of them. And of course, I discussed selling one of Ferran Torres or Dembele in my team selection, but with a Dembele one, that's not going to be the case. He's no longer orange flagged anyway. He was in training. So it would be Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia if I were to make a move there. And up front, I'm still tempted by Lewandowski, but he's not starting. So I think keeping what I have there is absolutely fine. So really what it comes down to me, for me is actually selling both Arsenal defensive coverage, or do I sell Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia? I think that's what I'll likely do. Thank you, by the way, to Napstars, I believe, for gifting 5 memberships, and we will be gifting even more very soon to celebrate 33,000 subscribers as we are on the cusp of achieving that goal. Be sure to like this video as well. Let's get this to 200 plus likes. We are getting close to that, and we still have a lot of people tuning in. I know we're towards the end of the season, and a lot of us have similar teams, but let's try to be different. And by the way, we are 1 subscriber away from 33k. If you are the lucky 33,000th subscriber, let me know in the live chat, and I will celebrate instantly with 5 memberships gifted. So that means for an entire month, you'll get early access to my content. You'll also get priority reply to comments in the videos and live streams. So the interactivity will be even better if you are a member. The Zeolatic show says, should I take a hit for PSG defense and take Saliba out? No, I wouldn't take a hit. I mean, with Nuno Mendes and Hakimi, that could be worthwhile. And whilst Bacho's good for ball recoveries, I don't think it's worth a hit necessarily. So Niken, Sam, the Zeolotic show, Pieter, and What No Graphics, enjoy the memberships. And a big up to Napstars for gifting so many in the recent deadline streams. The same goes to Paredes as well. Who do you think are the best players out of PSG's front 3? The best players out of PSG's front 3? Well, Dembele, then Kvaratskhelia, and then Doué in UCL Fantasy terms. And I think that'll be the starting lineup there for PSG. Barcola will be 4th, and then Gonzalo Ramos 5th. Yeah, best Barca defender, as covered multiple times, it would be Inigo Martinez. Barcola or Torres? Torres. I don't think Barcola starts. The template options are Rafinha and Dembele. That's what I'll likely go to, but I think on the Tuesday you can go different about it. So Dumfries is under consideration, Lautaro Martinez, Lewandowski off the bench is very risky, but I think you can afford to do that as a captaincy option because you've got the Wednesday choice to fall back on. And I think Yamal's a good shout as well. Not differential, to be fair, but I think a lot of us will be captaining Rafinha instead. But at the moment, I'm captaining Rafinha and then Dembele tomorrow. But in terms of rank rise, you're not going to get too much from it, even if they score. Jesmar says, Koundé replacements. Saliba, Dumfries, Mendes, and Hakimi are my other defenders. I would recommend Bacho. Now, you might not want to go all in on PSG defense. I understand that, but that is my recommendation. I'll probably go through it one more time, Omar, but yeah, I have covered it multiple times in this video and in yesterday's team selection. Doué or Lewandowski? I would go for Doué. Is Koundé out for the season? He's out for 3 weeks. Who takes corners for Inter? I believe it's Calhanoglu. And I think DeMarco takes some corners as well, but feel free to correct me, any Inter Milan fans that are watching. Captain, just covered. Kvaratskhelia or Ferran Torres to Saka worth it? Yeah, I think it is possibly worth it, but I don't see a massive difference between all of them. And Saka was quite disappointing in the first leg, and he played quite poorly against Bournemouth over the weekend. But if I were to make a move here, it'd be Ferran Torres out. I'm not sure about that, Luca, in terms of inter-defense. I think having Dumfries and maybe Bastoni, fucking voice. Yeah, Bastoni for the ball recoveries and Dumfries for the attacking threat is absolutely fine. But going all out, especially if you have Yamal and Rafinha up front, I'm not so sure about that. Welcome to Stupaki. Best trust replacement? Well, the obvious ones are Dembele, Rafinha, Yamal. Other than that, you're looking at Saka, Kvaratskhelia. So that's 5 options for you there. Who should I replace with Koundé? Best options? I'd say Dumfries or one of Hakimi, Nuno Mendes. My FPL season is ending in depressing fashion. Same here, but to be honest, for quite a while I've been just praying for the end of the FPL season, and Premier League has been very boring. Non-fantasy, who do you think is the best? Probably the same order, in my opinion. Yeah, same order. Hi Dylan, should I transfer in Olmo for Ferran Torres? Probably not. I think Olmo is also insecure in terms of minutes, so I'd probably just keep Ferran Torres. Yeah, João Neves is a good player. He had a very good first leg performance against Arsenal. I think he is overshadowed by Vitinha, who has more technical ability, but João Neves defensively it definitely does a job there. Sell Ferran Torres or Saka for Kvaratskhelia? Ferran Torres. I think Barcola will start over Doué. Also wondering who would you replace Saliba with if you already had 3 PSG defenders and Dumfries. I'd consider a 4th PSG option, but you're probably going to go for Marquinhos there. I'm guessing you've got Bacho, Hakimi, and Nuno Mendes, but yeah, that's a tough one. In my best team video, I did cover this scenario, and I went for Inigo Martinez to balance things out a little bit. Kvaratskhelia and Courtois, or Trossard and Donnarumma, says Nick. I want to go for Trossard. I don't think he starts, so the answer is, well, Kvaratskhelia and Courtois, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I get your question, to be fair. I mean, at least Trossard will get an appearance point or maybe score a goal off the bench. That is a tough one, to be fair. Now, I'd go for Trossard and Donnarumma, but that's not an ideal situation. That's fair enough, Julian. I mean, Yamal was really impressive in the first leg. Timber is not out, Pontus. Why keep Koundé? Who said I'm keeping him? I haven't made transfers yet. Dumfries or Bacho, says Karbub. Probably Dumfries, and then have Hakimi and Nuno Mendes at the same time. Maybe Donnarumma in goal, but that's a close one. Sell Vitinha for Kvaratskhelia. There's a higher ceiling with the Georgian, but I'm not sure. I think Vitinha is a solid option. Dembele, Yamal, Rafinha, who is going to win Ballon d'Or? I think it's going to be one of Rafinha or Yamal. I don't think Dembele will win it. I also think Barcelona have a better chance of winning the Champions League, but Yamal is the current favourite, and Rafinha's been the best in the Champions League this season. He's more of a goals and assists sort of player in the last year compared to Yamal, but yeah, it's a close one. I don't think there's a standout. It's not like before where you had Messi, who was the best player in the world. I'd say Rafinha, probably. Sell Trossard for Kvaratskhelia or Vitinha? I would go to Kvaratskhelia. Fatal07 says, would you replace Saliba for a Barcelona or Inter defender? Yes, Dumfries, if you can. So, if for those that haven't done so already, subscribe, like the video. I think we've hit 33,000, so I do appreciate it. I'll also try to fix the light again, since it's acting up on me in the last couple of streams. Check out the links in the description below for my X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can find me by tapping FPL Dylan or Dylan RCM. Check the Discord server, FPL League, Spotify, the Patreon, and Championships. So click the join button on YouTube or go to patreon.com/FPL Dylan. It's very easy to find me. And also join the UCL Fantasy League. It's the biggest mini league in the world with over 5,000 members. And we also have similar numbers in Fantasy Premier League as well. But thank you to those that have subscribed. And also to Napstars for gifting more memberships in this stream. And I'll be gifting 5 now and then 5 more towards the end of this live stream. So stay tuned if you are still here by the deadline when we have kickoff between Inter Milan, Barcelona. You'll have a chance of gaining a membership for an entire month. So make sure to do that. And you will have a lot of different perks there, like priority reply to comments in the live streams and videos. So that means you'll always have your questions answered, even if we have a very busy stream. But yeah, for some reason, my light is just absolutely dying on me. One of them at least, but I'll try to fix it for future streams as well. So very soon I'll be going through more questions, and even for the Champions League final on the 31st of May, I will be here going live and covering all your questions. And the same goes for your fantasy content, the best team combining the Limitless and the Wild Card. For FPL, I'll still be here for Game Week 36, 37, and 38, even if things aren't going particularly well for my squad. And yeah, let's see how this goes. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to solve this one. This has been very annoying, to say the least. But I'll give it one more shot, and if not, I'm going to leave that bloody light to perish on its own. All right. Let's go back to your questions, and very soon I'll also be showing you some different graphics. In fact, we might as well do it now, since people are still asking similar questions about what are your transfers, also, you know, what are the injury updates. So I'll just go through them very briefly. I'm not going to commentate too much over it because I've done so dozens of times in this video and also yesterday across my best team and team selection videos. But this is how I did for Matchday 15, not too relevant now. I got a small green arrow, as you can see, but some big disappointments, of course, from the first leg and a few missed opportunities. If I was in a slightly better position, you could say, I would have bought Denzel Dumfries and that would have been a massive game changer. But still, a green arrow of 3,000 places, and that's better than a red arrow, which I'm hoping to avoid for Matchday 16. So right to Donnarumma is very likely, but not locked in. Koundé to Dumfries is something I'm quite set on, but this could even be William Bacho and just prioritize the PSG defense first. But I can also do that by selling Saliba to the Ecuadorian and triple up, maybe even quadruple up on the PSG defense. And Dembele to Kvaratskhelia is out of the cards now. If I were to buy the Georgian, it would be at the expense of Ferran Torres for the expected minutes and also the chance of going through and a few other factors like that. And the final move that I'm looking to make is Lautaro to Lewandowski, but that doesn't make any sense now with Lautaro starting and Lewandowski on the bench. So if I were to bring in the Polish striker, it would be for Doué instead. I think he's going to start tomorrow, but of course there's still the possibility that Barcola is playing in that lineup. But these are my most likely transfers and team selection for Matchday 16. I do encourage you not to copy, but of course there's still going to be people who do it anyway. But at this stage of the competition, you want to be different, even with the captaincy, your transfers, and your choice of team structure. So my current plan is to go all in on that PSG offense. That could be a mistake waiting to happen, but that is something I kind of lacked for the first leg. And I also feel Arsenal can be toothless in the semi-final stages. As I said before, they haven't scored in the last 6 semi-finals. And with the captaincy, it's quite simple. Rafinha on the Tuesday, and then Dembele on the Wednesday. That's what I'll likely go to be honest. And I don't see myself changing that too much. But I think that is an opportunity there, especially on the Tuesday, to go a little bit different with the captaincy. Denzel Dumfries. Maybe you go for Lautaro Martinez or Yamal, Ferran Torres, and for those of Lewandowski, you go for that kind of high-risk approach because of the minutes being a big concern there. And let me show you the odds one more time. So Inter Milan are bottom with a 17% chance of keeping a clean sheet. Arsenal are third with 21%. Then you've got Barcelona in second place with 22%. And PSG are top, but still a low percentage, only 29% against the Gunners. With the goal scorer odds, we have some interesting names in the top 15, top 16 list. No Robert Lewandowski, but he is on the bench and he can still make a huge impact there. So Lautaro Martinez, Dembele, Rafinha, Gonzalo Ramos, Yamal, Torres, Thuram, Barcola, Saka, Kvaratskhelia, Taremi, Martinelli, Olmo, Doué, Trossard, and Nwaneri. That is the top 16 ranked in order, and I think Lewandowski would be right up there now because he's in that squad, maybe even in the top 5. But this is with the assumption that all these players start, and of course that won't be the case for everyone you see there. And let's now go finally to the team news, which I'll recap very briefly. Of course, the first leg results can be seen on screen, and obviously the Champions League bracket, and we have come a long way in the knockout stages. The top scorer of this competition remains Guirassy. Rafinha is just behind, and you've got Kane and Lewandowski on 11. Vinicius, Lautaro Martinez, and Haaland all have 8. So, of course, this is kind of redundant. We know Lautaro Martinez is starting. Pavard is out. He's not even in the squad, and that was confirmed after seeing the lineups, which I'll go through one more time. Balde is also out of the squad. What we want to focus on is more so the team news for tomorrow. So, of course, there were conflicting reports about Lewandowski in terms of him starting or being benched, but it looks like this source was correct, and Lewandowski is on the bench, of course, even though he was pushing Hansi Flick to start the game. So Ousmane Dembele was in PSG training yesterday, so he will start against Arsenal. And we got some positive news there for the Gunners. Jurrien Timber will play against PSG, and that was confirmed today in training, and Odegaard is also fine. So in the case of Calafiori, Odegaard, and Timber, all of them were in training today, and that is a massive boost there for Arsenal. So that wraps up the team news. Not much more to discuss. Thomas Partey is back from suspension, and all the doubtful players and also the ones missing out were covered in this deadline stream and also yesterday in my team selection and best team podcast. So let's now go back to my UCL Fantasy squad, and very soon I'll be locking in some transfers and putting out some polls, in my opinion. Manit says, who deserves Ballon d'Or? I don't think Salah deserves it. He had a great first half of the season, but he has tailed off. I mean, since Blanc-Gemic 29, only 1 goal, and he also lost the Carabao Cup final, didn't even play well at all in the Champions League. He had a decent campaign, but nothing spectacular. So I do think Rafinha deserves it over Salah. And I did say this when Salah was on fire, that let's wait until the end of the season because we have seen him kind of falter towards the end, and it has been the case again. So I do think Rafinha over Salah. Gorgeous says, hi Dylan, can you rank Calhanoglu, Olmo and Pedri as options for the game? Calhanoglu first, Olmo second, and Pedri third. I think the way you've ranked it. Diego says, si vas a elegir un capitán de Inter, ¿a quién prefieres? Dumfries, pero yo no creo que va a replicar lo que hizo la semana pasada, pero para mí es la mejor opción. Hamza says, Szczesny, Raya, 4 PSG defenders, Koundé, Dembele, Kvaratskhelia, Ferran, Yamal, Rafinha, Lewandowski, Thuram, Lautaro, and free transfers. What would you do besides Koundé to Dumfries? Possibly Raya to, well, maybe it's not possible in your case. You've got 6 PSG players already. Yeah, it's kind of a difficult one for you. You could do Lewandowski to Doué, even though I've mentioned this multiple times, there's a risk of Lewandowski still doing well. Maybe Ferran Torres out for Calhanoglu, or I'd go to Saka. I'd still go to Saka. I know you've got 4 PSG defenders and you're going all in on them, but that'd be my advice, I think. I'd go to Bukayo Saka over Ferran Torres. Juniper says, I still have Lewandowski. Might as well play him and sub if he blanks. I'm guessing that is, or duds. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there aren't many standouts in the forward line anyway, so you're not missing out on much. The best captain for today, I think Rafinha is still a standout, but the difference between him and second place or the other options isn't as high as it usually is. No worries, Napstars. I appreciate you sending in gifting the memberships earlier. So my defense, Hakimi, Mendes, Baccio, Bastoni, transfer Timber to who? I'd go to Dumfries. I'm not sure which goalkeepers you have, and if you have Sommer, tripling up on Inter Milan defensively seems a bit overkill, but Dumfries has the attacking threat to kind of compensate for that, in my opinion, so that'd be my recommendation. Julio Benya, apologies for not seeing your super chat earlier. Hi Dylan, is Doué to Lewandowski worth it? There is still a chance that Doué doesn't start tomorrow, but I still think he does. So I'd probably just keep what you have. And even for those Lewandowski, you probably also just keep him. There's not a massive difference between these players, but you might have the opinion that Lewandowski comes off the bench and scores. That is possible. And if you really feel bullish about it, I don't think it's a bad idea whatsoever. But for me personally, I don't think I'm going to make that move. I'll probably keep Doué, Lautaro, and Thuram. Yeah, best captain for each day. The template ones are Rafinha and Dembele. I think for today, if you want to go a little bit different, I would probably go for Dumfries. As I said in Spanish, though, I don't think you'll replicate what he did last week. Yeah, Saka for me, Hori and Amin. I nearly said anime. Saka to Kvaratskhelia, not for me, Matt, but it's up to you. What should be my last transfer, Doué or Çalhanoğlu? It really depends on who you can buy, Sydney, but probably Çalhanoğlu out. Badgeraz says, hey Dylan, 3 best differentials to climb up to first place in my mini league. Captaining Dumfries would be 1. I would also say, to be honest, a differential play would be keeping Arsenal defenders and Raya, so doubling up on that Gunners defense. I mean, it might not be pretty, but that is another idea for you. I would also say having Lewandowski and Lautaro simultaneously, but doesn't look great with the Polish striker on the bench. Another differential would be Marino in the midfield. I think you'll play up front for Arsenal, so those are some good ideas there for you. Eugenio says DeMarco or Dumfries, then Kvaratskhelia or Torres. Dumfries and Kvaratskhelia. Fast defender, Inigo Martinez for me. Not for me, Ranak. I wouldn't sell Saka to Torres. Yeah, Lautaro's a good captaincy option. Not my favourite, but he's a solid choice. Bose says, I've locked in my squad, Captain Çalhanoğlu. He's on penalties, he's a decent option, and he's a differential. You can always go to Dembele tomorrow if needed, or maybe Saka. Koundé or Pau Torres to Dumfries. Koundé is definitely out, so sell him and keep Kubarsi in this case. Is the market for Dumfries worth it? That is certainly debatable. I think Dumfries is an upgrade. He's more nailed on for minutes, he's got more attacking threat, but before Matchday 15, he hadn't scored or assisted in this season's Champions League, which might sound very surprising. But yeah, I think so, assuming it's not for a hit. Should I transfer Doué to Thuram? Close one. I don't see a massive difference between the two. I mean, Thuram outscored him by 4 points last week. It could be the other way around this time. I'd lean towards no, actually. I'd probably keep Doué. Ricardo Oliva says, should I do a 4th transfer for Dumfries in, Saliba out? That's interesting. For a -4 hit, that could be one of the few defender moves that really pays off. But Saliba has ball recoveries as well. I think Barcelona will score again, 1 or 2 goals. And I don't think Dumfries will get a brace and an assist again. Maybe he gets something, 1 attack in return, but nothing, outlandish in my opinion. I would probably say yes, but temper your expectations because I don't see the massive swing that we saw last week. Koundé for who? I'd say Dumfries or one of Hakimi/Nuno Mendes. If you have those players already, then I'd look at Pacho. Çalhanoğlu's on penalties for Inter Milan, Sam. Lautaro is one of the top penalty takers, but Çalhanoğlu is first. Yeah, Yamal's a good option for the captaincy. I'm probably going to go for Rafinha, but Yamal isn't too far behind. Mina says, hey Dylan, would you transfer Kvaratskhelia for Ferran Torres or Saliba to Inigo Martinez? I would sell Saliba to Inigo Martinez, but good question. It's quite close overall. Oroni1 says, Olmo por Saka puede ser una buena noche para Barça. Sí, puede ser una buena noche para Barcelona. Tiene buenos datos y todo eso en la fecha, que es el sexto de mayo, pero me gusta Saka. A pesar de que PSG tiene grandes chances de progresar, yo creo que Saka es una buena opción en la Champions League. MacDon says Kvaratskhelia or Torres. Kvaratskhelia. Christian Delgadillo says, keep Timber or sell for Marquinhos. I currently have Bastoni, Hakimi, and Mendes. Yeah, Marquinhos is a good shout. But there's also Bacho, who for me is slightly better than Marquinhos because of ball recoveries. But yeah, I think either one is fine. The other option, yeah, you're already buying in. Dumfries for Koundé. That makes sense. Probably Dumfries, Nick. Also covered before. Yeah, Ricardo, as I said a few minutes ago, I'd probably go for it. Thank you, Sam. Lewandowski out, Thuram in. I'd lean towards yes, but I have to stress it. It's possible that Lewandowski scores off the bench. Trade Saka for Kvaratskhelia, not for me. But it's up to you how you want to play it. If you fancy PSG and you think Saka will blank, then go for it. Junior Fantasy says Kvaratskhelia, Saka, Trossard, Marino, or Kalanoglu. Saka's my favourite. Nuno or Bastoni? Nuno Mendes. Thank you as well to Twisted Parky for moderating the chat. Just be patient. Your questions and comments will be answered. We have hit 33,000 subscribers. Let me gift 5 memberships myself. And towards the end, when kickoff commences, I'll be gifting 5 more to celebrate 33,000 subscribers. So big up to everyone who has supported the channel. It is greatly appreciated. So let's gift 5 now and see who gets them. Of course, Napstar's gifted 5 just a few minutes ago, and that is very much appreciated. Thank you, El Padrino. Always good to see you. So, Richard Downs, Terry Irwin, WEd86, Stacks. Reminds me of Stacks in Sinners, but let me not say anything. Don't want to spoil the show or the film for anyone. On my screen, it seems like only 4 people were gifted memberships, not 5. Not sure what that's about. Let me know. But yeah, on my screen, it doesn't show all the... That's odd. It only shows 4 gifted memberships. YouTube are shafting me there. Well, they're shafting the 5th person. Oh, it's Goldhead because he's a moderator. Okay, Goldhead, enjoy the membership. Yeah, surely they're not going to do that. Yeah, Hugo Cipriano says Sinners with a heart. Not emoji, but you know what I mean. Yeah, thank you, Sadiq. Pedro Fro says, hey Dylan, everything good? Would you start Szczesny or Sommer? Yeah, all good, and I would go for Sommer. Slightly better chance of a clean sheet in my opinion, even though the odds disagree. They've got Barcelona in 3rd for clean sheet probabilities and Inter Milan in 4th. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Barcelona are 2nd, just above Arsenal. Sommer or Szczesny? Sommer. Bastoni or DeMarco? Bastoni. I was asked this last week, and my answer was the best Inter Milan defenders are Dumfries 1st, Bastoni 2nd, DeMarco 3rd. I'm not going to change that. Thank you, Rolando. Gracias. Saludos desde Bolivia. Gracias, Rolando. Y te deseo lo mejor para la jornada 16. Thank you to Sepaki. As he says, more likes. Let's get this to 200 plus and then see what we can do from there. So we currently have, we're 4 likes away from 200. So, yeah. I guess 250 is our main aim by the end of this stream, and we still have half an hour. Fairly soon, but like I said before, I'm not saying you are copying, but for those that are just eagerly anticipating what I'm going to do and then just replicating it, my advice is not to do so, otherwise you're limiting yourself and your potential. So, let's put a poll out and see what you lot are preferring for transfers. So I think Koundé to Dumfries or Bacho is quite locked in for me. I'll probably go for Dumfries. But let's go for the other transfers that I'm looking at. So let's do which transfers do you prefer? And I'm assuming this will apply to a lot of people and help those that are undecided. So let's do Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia. Probably the most likely. Okay, let's see if I can do this quite quickly, this poll, so I can get back to your questions. But yeah, I will be covering new ones, new scenarios, new questions and topics, and try not to repeat myself too much because we have covered some questions quite a few times here. So let's do Ferran to Kvaratskhelia, Wi-Fi password. Yep. Jesus, it's a complicated name to get right. All right. Let's do that. Let's also... Due to Lewandowski. I'm Don't think that's going to be very popular, but it's worth putting in. Let's do Due to Lewandowski. Raya to Donnarumma. And Saliba to Pacho. Okay, so those are the possible transfers at the moment. Not locked in, and I'll be looking to make 2 of them, actually. So let's go for some new ones. Let's see what we have. Yeah, Alejandro Lewandowski's on the bench, so at the moment I'm not looking to bring him in, but he is an option in the poll. Best forward, limitless active. You don't have many options, mate. I mean, you're essentially limited to Remy, Lewandowski, Thuram, Due, and Lautaro Martinez. So Lautaro and Thuram start. I'd go for both of them. I think the third one is between Lewandowski and Due. There's a chance the Frenchman starts tomorrow. I think he will. And Lewandowski should get 30 to 40 minutes off the bench. So it's really in your court how you decide to go about it. In yesterday's video, I went for Lewandowski, but I did say that I feel he won't start the game. And that is wrong true. But there's a little differential you can go for on the limitless or wildcard, but there is a big risk with the minutes not being there. So yeah, Hugo Cipriano, kind of building upon that answer I just gave. Lewandowski for Due, it's not a really massive priority for me. I think there could be better transfers to make, and Due should get more minutes than Lewandowski this week. Alan Carswell says, hola, se me olvidó cambiar la jornada pasada y tengo 3 jugadores que no juegan. Me recomiendan hacer 1 o más menos 4, Courtois, Kim Min-jae, Koundé. Y puedes ir por algo como Courtois por Donnarumma, Koundé por Dumfries y Kim Min-jae por Nuno Mendes, Hakimi, Pacho. Yo creo que vale un menos 4. Emilia says get rid of Raya. Yeah, he's been kind of a poor asset for me in FPL and UCL Fantasy. When I don't own him, he's great, so I might have to take one for the team there. So at the moment in this poll, Raya to Donnarumma is top. Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia is second. Then you have Due to Lewandowski in third, and Saliba to Pacho is actually last. But I understand that. I think having one Arsenal defender is still a viable strategy. Mac Beer says Kvaratskhelia or Ferran Torres. Kvaratskhelia this week. It is close. Yeah, I bugged out with the 5 memberships because Goldhead appears blue because he's a moderator. So yeah, that was my mistake. Can you rank these players, says Yasir. Ferran, Torres, Marino, Kvaratskhelia for this game week. Kvaratskhelia, Marino, Torres. Something like that, yeah. It's very, very, very close. I'm now considering DeMarco instead of Pacho to create the last PSG spot for Kvaratskhelia. That makes sense. I think with Inter Milan, though, I wouldn't triple up on their defense, as good as they are. Lewandowski and Martinez updates. Well, Lewandowski's on the bench. Lautaro starting. Both lineups were covered as well. Yeah, Dembele will start FPL Elmer. Dylan, don't forget that you only have 5 players for the final, plus 5 transfers if Barcelona and Arsenal go through. Yes, but you only need 11 players. You are right, both ties hang in the balance. So there is a big risk involved, and I could be down to 10 players and be forced into a -4. So it is important to have a little bit of balance. I get your point, but having said that, Matchday 17 isn't that difficult to navigate for most people. Who's the best Barcelona defender? I think Inigo Martinez. Saka for me. I think Saka over Kvaratskhelia overall. Samuel Hoyos says, hola Dylan, I don't know if I should change Saliba for Pacho, Raya to Donnarumma, or both. My preference is Raya to Donnarumma, and that's also reflected in the poll. Ferran or Rice to Kvaratskhelia? I'd rather sell Rice, as good as he is, and he should play a more advanced role, so he's a good option, but I'd rather have Ferran Torres and Kvaratskhelia. Top 3 defenders tonight: Dumfries, Bastoni, and Inigo Martinez. If video gets 500 likes, I'll give 50 memberships. Thank you very much, Paredes. I mean, that's a very tall order. I mean, I think getting to 300 will be a push anyway, but it's always good to be ambitious and push on towards new numbers. I get that. But yeah, with YouTube, I've kind of gotten used to the likes and stuff like that. Yeah, 500 might be a tall order today. But for Matchday 1, the deadline stream for next season, I think that is definitely a possibility. We've done it before. Torres or Saka, says Maxi. Saka for me. How many transfers will keep in match days? Just to break it down, because I'll be honest, I didn't understand fully what you're saying, but you get 3 transfers this week. You get 5 free transfers for match day 17, and you can't roll. So if you decide to not use your free transfers now and you roll one of them, you can't carry that forward to the next round and have 6. You can't do that. Ricardo Oliva says, got Lautaro, Thuram, Rafinha, Yamal, Ferran, Dembele, Hakimi, Saliba, Nuno, Bastoni, Szczesny, on the bench, Donnarumma, Pacho, Saka, and Doué. Wondering about differentials. Could be for me. 12 points off first. Interesting. You've got a solid setup and a few differentials in there already, but another one to consider is Marino in the midfield. I would also consider, even though it is a big risk, to sell Saliba and just go all in on PSG. And you can go for Bacho or Marquinhos, but it is a massive risk there. I do like the structure you have already. I mean, you've got Bacho, to be fair. You don't need to do that. Saliba to Dumfries is an option. I think that is a solid choice. In the midfield, Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia or Marino. But of course, you could have some clashes. That is inevitable ultimately with these semi-final stages. You've only got 2 fixtures there. I think Doué will start Preston, but it's not guaranteed. Magden says, sell Lewandowski for Thuram. I'd lean towards yes, but it's not like a massive difference for me. Like, would I be surprised if Lewandowski came off the bench and scored and Thuram blanked? Not really. I prefer Bastoni, Samir. Man United says, yo Dylan, I have 2 Inter and PSG defenders. Should I get a 5th defender or keep Koundé and get Sommer or ter Stegen in? Well, not ter Stegen, he's not starting, and it's Szczesny who is the number 1 goalkeeper for Barcelona. He's in the lineup today. Yeah, I'd sell Koundé. Assuming you've got a goalkeeper for tomorrow, yeah, I'd just go for Koundé there. Your boy's crazy says, who do you reckon would play striker? Marino. Agustin Rocco says, ¿crees que debería optar por un -4 en conseguir a Pacho y sacar a Saliba? No, para mí no vale la pena. Y me gusta Pacho porque tiene la habilidad de recuperar el balón, pero por un -4 yo creo que no vale la pena. Keep Lewandowski or get Thuram, says Omar. Probably just get Thuram from a minutes perspective, but only for free. Yes, Sadiq, you can use the Limitless next week, but I'll be honest, it's kind of worthless now, and in Matchday 17, even more so. The only thing I can really see that people with the Limitless or Wildcard can really gain now is going for differentials and changing their structure completely. But yeah, I think a lot of people can really match the Limitless and Wildcard squads at this stage of the competition. Probably now ADM, because you get 3 transfers now, as opposed to 5 for Matchday 17, and you only need 11 players for the Champions League finals, so I'd probably use it now. If there's an official FIFA Fantasy game for the Club World Cup we'd be playing, potentially. I have been asked this before, but I've never seen a Club World Cup game, but then again, we have an extended format. FIFA love their money. They do fantasy games in general with the World Cup, so maybe it's a possibility. So yeah, I'll keep you posted on that, but no guarantees, because if there is no fantasy game there, it will be just a summer building graphics for next season and trying to fine-tune certain things for UCL Fantasy and FPL. Of course, last year I covered the Euros, and that was a lot of fun. We actually grew the channel a lot in that time frame. But yeah, if the kind of desire for Club World Cup fantasy content is there, and if the game exists, I'd be open to it, but no guarantees. Preston, you have asked this question. I can't really repeat myself too much more. Wildcarded a full team this week, says Gary. Interesting. Well, the wildcard can be useful in some scenarios, but I think for a lot of people, I don't see much value in that or the Limitless, to be honest, but everyone's different. Balasis says, who to captain? I prefer Rafinha. But it is a good week to go against him, in my opinion. Would you prefer taking a -4 for Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia? Not for a -4. Yeah, no worries, Man United, and I think you've got a decent team anyway. Best differential captain? Dumfries would spring to mind, Lautaro Martinez, and I'd say Ferran Torres would be kind of a left field pick. Dani Olmo's not too shabby. But in terms of ranking them, it's kind of tough. I would gravitate towards Dumfries, but by no means do I expect him to replicate what he did last week. Good luck as well, Gary. Yeah, Timber should start. Courage. Best Koundé replacement? I'd say Dumfries. I'm not a big fan of Kubarsi and UCL Fantasy. No Paredes, you can't roll a transfer. You did ask this in the last deadline stream, I believe, and yeah, you can't do that. Why was Lautaro subbed off after 45 minutes in the last match? Injury. That was quite clear. He was subbed off due to injury. You get 5 transfers, FPL Eric. When Lewandowski's not playing, who's on penalties? Rafinha. Yeah, it should be Rafinha on penalties. I think Ferran Torres is not too far away from the pecking order, but Rafinha is next in line. Thank you, Napstars. Support Dylan. Please like and subscribe. It is free and the best UCL content. Very kind of you, Napstars. And also to Paredes, who just gifted 10 memberships. So big up to you. So yeah, I do appreciate all the memberships you've gifted in recent weeks. You have pushed us to over 100 members on YouTube, which is something I don't take for granted. So thank you very much. So your boy is crazy. Denver CPT 786, Bad Panda, Ivan Schneider, Jerry Brooks, Homan Hawari, FPL Wold, Sohib C, the Mac Manus Gaming, and Paul Evans. Enjoy the memberships gifted by Paredes. He's the one to thank. And you will get early access to my videos. And by the way, for those that have just signed up, there is a video available to you. That is the transfer tips for Game Week 36 in FPL. So after this deadline stream is done, feel free to go there and watch the 11 players to buy, hold, sell, and skip for FPL. And tomorrow it will be released to all subscribers and it will be public there. But for now, it is exclusive to members and patrons. So enjoy that. And thank you very much to Napstars and Paredes once more. Carlos Melera says, best differential captain. Yeah, as I just mentioned, Dumfries is my favourite. The other options to consider are Lautaro Martinez, Olmo, and I would also say Ferran Torres. Best goalkeeper? Well, Donnarumma is not necessarily the best one, you could say, but I do agree with your assessment. I think he's probably the standout. I would probably go for Sommer. You're not going to go for Sommer and Chesney or Raya and Donnarumma. You want one Tuesday, one Wednesday ideally, and my favourites would be Sommer and Donnarumma. Thank you, Jesse. Marcel puts his team. What would you do? Well, a lot of our teams are similar, so this I've kind of answered already. But what I would consider doing in your situation is Torres to Dembele. I think that is an upgrade, so I would recommend it. You could also sell one of Saliba or Raya, perhaps even both. That is something else I would recommend. But ultimately, Koundé is the priority transfer out. He's not playing today. He's injured for the next 3 weeks. So Koundé to either Dumfries or Bacho, Torres to Dembele, and then one of Raya or Saliba out. I'd recommend Raya to Donnarumma. I think that sorts you out there, Marcel. Any thoughts on Calhanoglu? Yes, I provided a lot of thoughts on Calhanoglu in all of my videos and streams. He's on penalties. He's the best Inter Milan midfielder in UCL Fantasy. He does pale in comparison to Saka, Dembele, Rafinha and Yamal, but as a fifth midfielder, he's a solid choice, and I think it's very close between him, Vitinha, Rice, Marino. There isn't really a standout on paper in UCL Fantasy. Barra says Dumfries or Bacho for Koundé. I'd go for Dumfries. Doge, Martinez is starting. He was subbed off due to injury in the first leg, which is why he was a doubt now, but he's in the lineup, so he's not injured. Olmo takes sometimes too, says Brian. That's a good point. Yeah, Dembele's fit to play, yeah. GG's Matic. Why do I have a feeling about DeMarco? Might Barcelona put all their focus on Dumfries, thereby leaving space for him? That's certainly possible, and that's why if you chase last week's points a little bit too much, you can be too late to the party and you miss out on other opportunities. So that's a great point there. The same goes for Yamal, by the way, where Inter Milan have said they're going to double and triple up on him, but that leaves more space for Olmo, Ferran Torres and Rafinha, so it's a double-edged sword. I think Barcelona might be very conscious about Dumfries, but DeMarco has a lot of attacking potential as well. Twister Parky says, I'm thinking Torres captain like I did last week. If it goes wrong, I will still have a chance to go for another. I'm on board with that, and I think Torres can score even in 60, 70 minutes, but the big concern is Lewandowski because he is ready to get significant game time off the bench, 30, 40 minutes maybe, and that could mean an early substitution for Ferran Torres. I don't feel the same way about Rafinha or Yamal personally. Yeah, Game Realm Hub. I personally don't choose who gets the memberships, so either I click a button or anyone who gives memberships themselves, like Paredes and Napstars, They click the button and then YouTube randomly allocate it. El Parcero del Fantasy says, I need to replace Trossard. Who should I transfer in? Already have Rafinha, Yamal, Ousmane Dembele, and Saka. Want to go a bit differential. Well, Marino's a good option. Low ownership, he should play up front, and it's kind of like for like, technically speaking, but I also like Calhanoglu. I would also say Ferran Torres, but I don't think the minutes are that secure. Dani Olmo, same kind of thing there, really. Those are the main midfielders I'd look at, alongside Kvaratskhelia. My current preference would be the Georgian. Pitch side with the port says, I'm captaining Thuram. I doubt many others will do the same. That's a fair shout. I don't like his ceiling, if I'm being honest, but the low ownership is definitely appealing, and he scored very early on in the first leg, so he can definitely do something. Ass Kicker says, keep Lewandowski, Lautaro, Doué, and transfer Szczesny to Sommer. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. I think what I'd end up doing personally, though, is Lewandowski to Thuram from a minutes perspective, but your idea is not a bad one. Jesma puts his team, 1 free transfer left, no idea how to use it. Welcome to the club. Raya, Szczesny, Bachot, Mendes, Hakimi, Saliba, Dumfries, Calhanoglu, Yamal, Dembele, Rafinha, Saka, Doué, Martinez, Thuram. You're kind of set, to be fair. I like your squad. If Lewandowski was starting, I would have said him in for Doué, but now it's a little bit different. I would probably say Raya to Donnarumma, Jesma. That's the best transfer. And even if you're a bit kind of skeptical about Matchday 17 and having a full 11 there, I think that works out fairly well. As I just covered, Marcel, I think Ferran Torres will play around 60 minutes. He could be subbed off earlier, and your squad was covered. So try not to repeat your question, because I literally covered it. No Dembele, too risky. He's going to play. I'd highly recommend going for Dembele. Yeah, I think you're right, Brian. Rafinha away to Inter Milan doesn't scream points, so I am very tempted to go differential with the captaincy. That's a great point. Torres for Vitinha, Pedri or Kvaratskhelia. It would be Kvaratskhelia for me. It is very evenly matched, but even with Torres, I'm a bit skeptical about selling him. I think he's a good option. It would be Doué right now, RNK, because he could start tomorrow. I think he will, while Lewandowski's on the bench today. If you were to sell Ferran Torres, apart from the usual Sakas, Dembele's, Rafinha's and Yamals, I think next in line would be Kvaratskhelia. I think Olmo and Marino, Calhanoglu are also in line to replace him, but my favourite is arguably Kvaratskhelia. I'm not sure if it's worth a transfer. I think Ferran Torres could match the Georgian, but it is a good move. Yeah, DeMarco's a good option, as covered by Sydney earlier. He might get more spaces, and he has the attacking threat that Dumfries poses on the other side, and he might be a bit overlooked by Barcelona. Thank you very much, FPL Joel. I think it's also worth mentioning that Barcelona aren't playing without any of their key fullbacks. Balde and Koundé are out, so not just Dumfries will benefit from it, but also you're looking at DeMarco, so that could be a great differential play. I'm definitely warming up to it, but in my own team, for example, apart from Koundé, I think the rest of my defense is fairly decent, so I don't need to change that. But for those looking for 2 defender transfers, I think Dumfries and DeMarco are great moves in that defensive line. All right, so I'm going to end this poll. Raya to Donnarumma is the winner. So 36% have suggested making that transfer. In second is Ferran Torres to Kvaratskhelia. In third is Doué to Lewandowski. And in last is Saliba to Bachot. So let me actually go to the transfer section and start locking in some moves, because we only have 9 minutes until the deadline. So what you see on screen is my ideal 50-man squad. I think what I'd end up changing, though, is going for DeMarco and Dumfries. Now, you could diversify things a little bit and maybe go for Inigo Martinez. So let's actually go for this. For this week only, I would suggest a structure kind of similar to this. Maybe you go for Bachot and you go for Szczesny, and that's your way of having that Barcelona defensive coverage. And I still think Arsenal can keep a clean sheet in Paris, although it's very unlikely, and they still have a solid defense overall. But interesting times are ahead. I think Lewandowski Doué is close, but I would lean towards Doué now, as I think he will start tomorrow. And that would be my ideal midfield right now. I still think, I know it wasn't really the case last week with Saka, but I still feel he is on that level with Dembele, Yamal, and Rafinha in UCL Fantasy. But of course, with the injury that we saw on the 21st of December, I think his momentum was halted a little bit across all competitions. So he is still not at his best level, but Saka is one of those potential difference makers in that position. But that is my 50-man squad on the Limitless or Wildcard. And for this week in particular, I would definitely recommend DeMarco. I think Bastoni is better for ball recoveries, and longer term he might be safer, but DeMarco I think could be very interesting in Matchday 16. Pardon myself. But as for my own team and my realistic transfers, yeah, I think Koundé to one of Dumfries, Bacho or DeMarco is on the cards. So let's get this show on the road. I'm going to do Raya to Donnarumma. I just somehow always jinx David Raya anyway in FPL and UCL Fantasy. So I'm going to go for these two transfers now, and then I've only got one more move to make, and that's something I'll deliberate for the last few minutes, basically. And I have answered hundreds of questions already, so yeah. I am going to focus on fixing up my final team. Make sure to start your Tuesday players, captain a Tuesday option as well. Don't feel afraid to go different. You can go for Dumfries, Lautaro, something a bit left field, and if it doesn't go well, you've got another option tomorrow. You get 5 transfers offer for the final. That hasn't changed from last season. Yep, Marino should start Doge. Yep. Possibly at Paredes. I don't mind that. I think having Dumfries and DeMarco is a great play. Into Barca, a lot of rain. Harder for Barcelona to play. Yeah, you could say that. If it rains too much, then yeah, that is definitely a good point. I know that KLH, but for those that are looking to copy, it is not time to copy. It's time to be different. Let's try to have a sort of unique approach to Matchday 16 and go for something a little bit different. Captain Thuram, Yamal for differential. I don't think Yamal is a massive differential for the captaincy, but compared to Rafinha, I think for those watching, yeah, Yamal would be a little bit of a more differential play, so to speak, but his ownership is very high. Yamal would be second, I think, in my list, or third. I think that game is very close to call. With tomorrow's game, I'm more convinced about Dembele as the captain. Less so, though, with today's game. So I'm going to lock in these two transfers. Dumfries, whose ownership is 5% still. That surely isn't correct. I think it's probably around 10% now, or it will be very soon. So I'm going to bring in Dumfries and Donnarumma for Koundé and David Raya. So let's make those two transfers. I also think Dumfries has more attacking threat from set pieces than DeMarco, and Barcelona seem to struggle a lot from those scenarios. So that's why Dumfries is prioritised over DeMarco still, but both of them could have joy against a Barcelona side without their main fullbacks in Koundé and Balde. So this is my current squad. Of course, we only have just over 5 minutes until the deadline. I'm very tempted to captain someone a little bit different, and that's what my final poll is going to be. So let's do this poll here about the Tuesday captain. So let's put the options here. Let's put Lautaro, Rafinha, Dumfries, and Yamal. Those are the 4 main options I'm going to go for, but feel free to go for Marcus Thuram, Ferran Torres, Dani Olmo. Unfortunately, I can't put more than 4 options in this poll, but those are the main 4 for me. UCL need more chips that adds up for every knockout stage. This way we can have almost the same team with different multipliers. Yeah, I think so. I do like UCL Fantasy in the way it works. It's quite simplistic for a lot of people, and it has a different sort of feel and structure to it than FPL. But maybe a chip, maybe 1 or 2 more chips could definitely refresh things a little bit, especially in the latter stages of the competition. Ross Wheeler says, I'm captaining Dumfries. Kalanoglu is my captain, actually. Yeah, that's what I mean. There are different options today, and it's very open. So I do recommend going a little bit different. Let me know if it just froze there for a second. I just want to see something, kind of technology being a bit of a pain there. ADM, I mean, the wildcard now or in Matchday 17, it's not as effective as it was early in the season, in my opinion. I just use it now. You get 5 transfers for the final anyway, and you only need 11 players. I would go for Marino over Ferran Torres this week, MD, but it's very close. Eno says, I have Martinez and Doué. Who do I bring in for Mbappe? Thuram. Mohammed says, Dumfries, Rafinha, or Torres captain. Well, Rafinha's not going to be a different captain, so if you want to be different, my answer is probably Dumfries. In the poll right now, Rafinha is top with 50%, Yamal is second with 20%, then you have Dumfries and Lautaro, so a lot of people are backing Barcelona to win today, and for their attackers to make the difference. I think I'll go with Lautaro, says Game Realm Hope. Yeah, I like that. Triple captain in UCL Fantasy next season? I'm not so sure about that. I mean, I think UCL Fantasy might do something a little bit different. But, yeah. Even in World Cup and Euro Fantasy, we've basically only seen the wild card in Limitless. Inigo Martinez or DeMarco? I would go for DeMarco for the attacking potential. I think both teams will concede. Vitinha, Doué and DeMarco, or Lewandowski, Pacho and Pedri, says Tarek. It's a close one. I would go for Vitinha, Doué and DeMarco. Manit says Pacho and Pedri or Bastoni and Kvaratskhelia. I would go for Bastoni and Kvaratskhelia. Yeah, I think so, Ashish, but it's not an absolute priority. No, Kalanoglu's on penalties there, John. Lautaro's like second or third in command there. Hugo Cipriano says Mbappe. What about him? I mean, in terms of selling him, I'd go to one of Thuram, Lautaro, and probably Doué with Lewandowski in fourth because he's on the bench. Thank you, Sadiq. Very much appreciated for the boys and all the best to you. I feel so bad having just transferred out Martinelli for Pedri. Yeah, I mean, Martinelli could be a difference maker, but he is so erratic and very inconsistent, and PSG are a good side, and they are the favourites to go through. Pedri is a player of the match magnet, basically. I'm guessing that's Ferran Torres to Kalanoglu and captain him. I'm not entirely sure about it, but it's not a terrible idea, and Kalanoglu's on penalties, so that could be the difference from the get-go. Doge says might go for Lamine. I mean, we've only got 1 minute left to lock things in, but it's not a bad idea as well. I think it's very close to kind of lock things in here. But yeah, on my bench, I've got all Wednesday players, Donnarumma, Hakimi, Saliba, and Saka. I'll probably keep those players. And now, if I want to make one final transfer, let's refresh this page and get things underway. Yeah, I'm just not entirely sure about this, if I'm being completely honest here. But I would be tempted, even like Bastoni to DeMarco seems quite sideways, but it's not a terrible idea in my opinion. Yeah, predict 6. I mean, I've gone for 2-1 Barca. I'm not entirely sure about that. I might even go for a draw there. But we've literally only got a few seconds left. I think I'm going to stick with this and not even use my free transfers. That doesn't mean it rolls over though. But yeah, I think that's probably how I'm going to end up rolling. You know what? I think Bastoni... This could be a mistake, by the way. But I'm going to go for something a little bit different. And go for DeMarco. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But it's a differential play. And we'll see if it goes through. So I have done Dumfries and DeMarco. Let's see how that ends up going. Something a little bit different. Because at this stage, we all have something quite similar. Rafinha is my captain. So nothing too surprising there. Let's see if this game loads. But yeah, my transfers have been locked. And we are good to go. All my Tuesday players are in the starting 11. But I was kind of looking at it. Ferran Torres. I know I've got basically, yeah, 2 Inter Milan defenders and 3 Barcelona attackers. But they are Tuesday players. I can sub them out if needed. But I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 Tuesday players. And then I've got Doué, Dembele, Nuno Mendes, Saka, Saliba, Hakimi, and Donnarumma tomorrow. So a nice balance. Let me know what you think in the live chat. I think Bastoni being sold could be a mistake because he has won Player of the Match awards before. He can get ball recoveries. But because I think both teams will score, I'm going for the attacking threat. Yeah, that is true, Hugo Cipriano. Like I said, I might regret it, but it's just a little bit of a different play. With Predict 6, if I show that very quickly, let's go to this one here. And I will close the other stuff. There's no need to talk about the lineups. That's been covered a lot of times. So I've gone for Inter Milan 1, Barcelona 2, and that's locked in now. So, yeah. I'm kind of hoping for a Barcelona win from a Predict 6 perspective. And let's see, in terms of my actual predictions, I've put, let's see. So yeah, 2-1 Barcelona, them to score first, a goal in the first half, Yamal to score, no clean sheet for Inter Milan, and also for the game to go to extra time. So I'm basically saying 1-1 in normal time, and then 2-1 Barcelona before 120 minutes. So I'm bound to get some predictions wrong there, and hopefully my PSG Arsenal one currently, which is 2-0 PSG, is wrong. I've gone for that prediction, and I'll lock it in tomorrow once I see those lineups. But that is Predict 6, and nothing more to say. Let's tune into the game and enjoy it. But for those that are still here, I did say I'm gifting 10 memberships today. Of course, Napstar's gifted a few earlier. I think he gifted 5. Paredes gifted 10. I gifted 5. And there's 5 more heading your way. So we are celebrating 33,000 subscribers in style. And this is my final team for those that aren't aware. So I did sell Bastoni to the Marco as a late transfer. I'm really hoping that doesn't come back to bite me. But yeah, this hasn't been my best season in UCL Fantasy, to be fair. But hopefully I can learn a few things and do even better for next season. And of course, FPL, there's still a few game weeks left for that. I'm looking to end that in style and better what I did in the last campaign. And yeah, Matchday 17 will be covered here as well. On the 31st of May, the Champions League final, there will be a deadline stream. And in the week building up to it, a best team video combining the wildcard and the limitless, and my own team selection with 5 free transfers. Rafinha's captain now, and if needed, Dembele will be my captain tomorrow, and hopefully I can jinx that guy. So let's give the 5 remaining memberships and see who gets them. So let's see. So let me know if there are any problems with the live chat or the live stream, if maybe things are bugging out a little bit. But in today's stream, we have gained a lot of subscribers, and of course we have easily reached 33,000, as yeah, we typically do in these deadline streams with a lot of people watching. And thank you to those that have liked the video. Even if you're on your way out, be sure to do so. But I think on YouTube I'm getting an error message. I'm not sure if that's actually a thing, or if it's maybe just a little visual glitch. We are 7 likes away from 300, so if you can, let's get this to 300. It'd be greatly appreciated, and a nice way to wrap up this Champions League season, even though we have one more, of course, remaining for the Champions League final. Let's go through the different predictions. Nothing to do with Doué. It's Lewandowski worth a transfer. I'm not so sure, to be honest, because Doué should start tomorrow, in my opinion, and Lewandowski's on the bench now. But both players can do something off the bench. Lewandowski's a veteran of the game, one of the best Champions League goal scorers of all time, but he is facing Inter Milan. I don't think it'll be as high scoring as the first match, but maybe I'm wrong about it. Yeah, I think that's worth it, Shish. Of course, the deadline has passed, but Luis Skelly to Pacho is a nice transfer. Omar says, thank you, Dylan. Good luck. I had Lewandowski last week, but Ferran played. Now I have the opposite. Hope it doesn't come back to bite me. Yeah, UCL Fantasy can be like that sometimes. I think Ferran Torres will be sobbed off early, but I think in terms of minutes, he should get more than Lewandowski. So Napstar says 4-2 Barca. Twisted Parky says 3-2 Inter. So different predictions there. Saka to Kvaratskhelia, yeah, not for me. And I hope Saka does the business tomorrow. Favorite team in South America, Dylan? Well, my family team is Rosario Central. That is my Argentinian team. I don't support anyone else there. So that is the answer. Ashish says I moved to Marcus from Lewandowski. That makes sense because Thuram is starting, Lewandowski's on the bench. Hopefully not easy. I'm hoping for the opposite there. But we all have our different preferences. Luis says thank you. Likewise to you. And the 5 people who got the memberships are Game Realm Hub, also to Mahuri, Ross Wheeler, Martin, and Sayak Mitra. So enjoy memberships. Remember, you can watch a video now before anybody else does. Be transfer tips for Gimmick 36 in Fantasy Premier League. That is already up on the channel. It has been all day. So enjoy it. And that is only one of many perks you get as a member or patron. The same goes for priority reply to comments in live streams and videos. James Evans says, good luck, everyone. The same goes to you, James. Keith says, off to hide from any results info for 5 hours when I can watch the match later. Good luck all. Yeah, enjoy yourself, Keith, and hopefully you get the results you want, unless you want, Arsenal to lose. In that case, bugger off. I'm just joking. Twister Parky says, unfortunately going 2-1 PSG, even though would massively prefer Arsenal to win. Yeah, I think logically PSG are the favourites to get the result, but stranger things have happened. Cheers as well, Niraj. Good luck. This one goes to Miguel Costa. Napstar says good luck to all, and if you need a TV series to watch, Mobland is Mobland is amazing. Yeah, I've heard some things about it, but I haven't seen anything myself. I think my parents actually watched it, but yeah, I'm watching a few different shows myself at the moment. Finishing off Monster, the anime, watching Vinland Saga, and also catching up with Andor, the new season. And yeah, I'm basically just always watching something at the moment. Thank you, Paredes, and I do appreciate your support. Doge says Lamine Brace. We'll see how that goes. Hello to Dendi. Miro says good luck. The same goes to you. All the best there. Brand says I went 0-0. Lol, want my clean sheet. Well, it currently is 0-0. We'll see how long that lasts. Doge says W33k. Yes, that is the biggest goal, of course, that was remaining for the season. So yeah, now it's all about just small incremental gains towards the next goal. So one at a time, 34,000 will be the next objective. And yeah, for next season, of course, the big aim by the end of the year will be 40,000 subscribers. So if we can keep up the pace, I think it will be possible. There will be a lot of people tuning into the first few UCL Fantasy and FPL Deadline streams. So that is the plan, to get those pieces of content done. But let's finish this season first and then make some small but steady progress there. Thank you as well to Arifin. All the best to you and enjoy the football. No easy, but thank you for repeating that message a lot of times. Josh says, I went for Thuram as captain. Thought it's okay since I can just captain Dembele tomorrow. Good luck all by the way. Yeah, I don't really blame you there, and I might have a slight regret about not captaining someone different to Rafinha. It is a great opportunity to go different, so yeah. And I'm also a bit skeptical about Bastoni to DeMarco, but I'm hoping I can gain something from it. He didn't have a great first leg performance there. It could go either way. I think PSG are the most likely to go through to the final. I would say PSG Barcelona. Who's been your favourite Rosario Central player? Well, a lot of them are before my time. So one of them has the apodo or nickname Negro Palma, but it's probably Di Maria. I know a lot of Central fans don't like him at the moment because, you know, he hasn't gone back and all of that, but he's my favourite to come out of there. And of course, he helped Argentina win so many things on an international stage. But yeah, it's probably Di Maria. Of course, I'm kind of a modern sort of fan. Hope to see an exciting match as we had last week, says the Mantis. Yeah, hopefully. I think the PSG-Arsenal game was more tactical, a bit cagier, worse finishing. But Inter Milan-Barcelona was a great game of football. Twisted Parky says, depending on who starts for City, maybe even something crazy like a -8, Chris Wood for the other striker, thinking Mateta might be rested for Cup and not penalties versus Isak. Also saw better fixtures than Murphy. Yeah, FPL hasn't really gone the way I wanted to. Last week was terrible, and it kind of undid the progress I made from the free hit the week beforehand. But yeah, I mean, I think taking a -4 hit for Bowen and Mbuma would have been great. Of course, Mbuma wasn't that efficient anyway. But yeah, this up front, once again punishing me. I'm looking at buying him in, possibly Bowen, and making a few transfers for a -4 or -8. I need to be aggressive at this point because otherwise I'm not going to get into the rank I want to. Top 3 Captaincy picks for tomorrow. Dembele, Saka, and I would probably say in third is... I'd say one of Hakimi or Nuno Mendes, actually. Then I'd probably put Marino in the top 5 because he's playing up front. I think he could be a difference maker. But yeah, from Arsenal, Saka's the standout, and I think Dembele overall. Yeah, as I mentioned before, Alan, I can't guarantee it, but if people want to see content for Club World Cup and there is a game, then I would be open to it, but it does depend on several factors. One, is the game actually going to happen? And two, the reception, because, you know, for previous tournaments, you know, like the World Cup and Euros, a lot of people wanted to see me cover it, and obviously there was a lot of growth involved there, and it was actually, you know, enjoyable to make the content, but it does depend on those factors. Josh says, I didn't go for DeMarco because he only played 56 or 57, I think, last game. Yeah, it was kind of like a differential sort of play there. I'm hoping he gets 60 plus minutes and he can get a goal or something, but yeah, maybe I shouldn't have gone there. I can't see myself regretting that move. Napstar says, thanks, Dylan. I'm going to watch the game. I'm an Arsenal fan, but lived in Spain for 10 years. So, WC, I am all Spain. Okay, I get that. Interesting stuff there. I actually didn't know you were an Arsenal fan, but hopefully they can do us proud tomorrow, but it is a big task. Troma Kid says, bloody hell. Paulo Wanchope played for Rosario. I had no idea about that. Ah, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of different players who have played for Central over the years, but not all of them have been great. Josh says, thanks for the stream. I'm going to go watch the game. Congrats on 33k. Can't wait until you get 1 million. Yeah, 1 million is a push, to be honest, especially covering FPL and UCL Fantasy, but never say never. And the channel might go in a different direction in a few years. You know, you never know what things, transpire, but I am open to doing other stuff like gaming and maybe something else entirely. Twisted Parky says, I'm thinking of playing Verbruggen, Byrne, Gavardio, Munoz, Salah, Mbumo, Rogers, Sarr, Isak, Mateta, and Marmoush. Bench Raya, Saliba, Virgil, and Murphy. I'm thinking Vissa for Isak, Mateta, KDB for Murphy -4. That looks promising. I like those transfers, to be fair. And yeah, De Bruyne is another one. If he starts, I'm very tempted to buy him. Since this De Bruyne last time with City, likely he's going to play all 4 games, including the FA Cup final. Possibly, but he was benched in the FA Cup semi-final. But in the Premier League, I think he'll start at least 3 of the next 4, possibly even all of them. And that would make him very appealing in Fantasy Premier League. My chat being iffy, messages from others stopped. Well, maybe people are just not here, to be fair to Stepaki, to be fair. But yeah, it has been a blast talking to you for the last couple of hours, and thank you to those that have tuned in. And we can also end this poll now, where Rafinha was the winner for the captaincy poll. Once again, I'm kind of thinking about my last transfer, DeMarco in for Bastoni. I'm really hoping that doesn't come back to bite me. If Inter Milan somehow haven't conceded in 60 minutes and DeMarco is subbed up before that, and Bastoni gets a clean sheet point. But we'll see how it goes. UCL Fantasy, of course, we all are gravitating towards the same players. We only have 4 teams to choose from, but there is still the possibility to get those green arrows. Thank you to those that have tuned in today. We have hit 33,000 subscribers. Let's push on towards new goals for next season, and let's get the stream to 300 likes. Thank you to those that have helped me there to achieve those goals. And you can also follow me on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Dylan RCM, the Discord server, FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. And Doge says, from counting losses to the FA Cup and 3rd. Oh, right, yeah. Man City, it's still not a great season for them, but don't get me wrong, I'd rather have that sort of season than winning nothing. And the FA Cup is a disrespected trophy, in my opinion. It is, for me, it ranks higher than Carabao quite significantly. And there is that debate about that versus the Europa League. And I think the big advantage with the Europa is the fact that you can qualify for the Champions League by winning the competition. But the FA Cup is the oldest cup competition in world football, and I think it deserves more respect in general. Twister Parky says, I'm going to captain PSG tomorrow to jinx it so Arsenal win. Well, that's my idea as well. I either get points from Dembele or I jinx him, and hopefully that would mean Arsenal go through, but it is a tough ask. Thank you, Twister Parky. And he says, I hope City can beat Palace. Can't help it, as I'm a Brighton fan. I get that. I mean, I'd rather Palace win it, but to be honest, I just don't really care. And I think City will end up winning the FA Cup. I'm just gutted that Arsenal made an absolute mess of it in the FA Cup once more. It seems like they either win the competition or go out in the first round or two, which isn't really acceptable. Have a good evening as well, Doge. For me, FA Cup and World Cup favourites, Champions League close 3rd. Yeah, in terms of cups, I agree with you. And naturally, I'm kind of biased towards the FA Cup because Arsenal are the most successful team in it and have a lot of history in that competition. But I probably agree with your ranking. If Arsenal can win the Champions League this season, maybe I feel differently about it. But World Cup first, FA Cup, yeah, maybe second. Of course, Champions League is bigger. But in terms of favourites, I probably agree with your ranking. And if you also include leagues, the Premier League would be right up there for me, even though I've kind of been disillusioned with multiple aspects of the league in recent years. And that's been the case for maybe a decade or two, to be fair. But there we go. Football, UCL Fantasy, FPL, it's all been covered in today's stream. I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy content. Don't forget, for those members and patrons, you can watch the transfer tips for Game Week 36. Am I Scottish? 11 players to buy, hold, sell, and skip there for the upcoming deadline. And the plan is to record a best wildcard team video and also talk about my plans for the team selection. I need to be different. I need to go a bit aggressive. That could mean a -4 or -8 hit to really get the best out of the rest of this season, because we are approaching the end game now. So thank you to Parky and everyone else watching. Prem favourite, fast paced, but not as technical as Europe. Yeah, I get that. Different styles, and that's why watching different leagues can be somewhat appealing at times. And in the Champions League, it all comes together with the competition. So yeah, that is a good point. I'll see you very soon, of course, for those FPL and UCL Fantasy videos. Take care, enjoy the football, and I'll see you very, very soon. In fact, on Saturday for another deadline stream, and that'll be for FPL, and for the Champions League on the 31st of May for Matchday 17. I'll be here live for the final for the Champions League as well. Take care, and until then, all the best of luck.